Can you hear me now, monkey? Am I coming in? Am I here? I might have to go back out and come back in. No voice, no voice, no voice. My voice? Am I being heard? Okay, good, good. Okay, there's another piece of art. Skyrealms of Jorune, sci-fi fantasy. Sci-fi fantasy. I have voice now. That's good. That's good. Take a look. If I have to, I'll show some more of the I'll show these again later. Skyrealms of Jorune. Good stuff, eh? Such a prominent part of the whole system that because of the way it's pitched, it's important to show this stuff because it's a unique part of the game. I'll show these again later, but I picked out 4 images that I could find that I thought were pretty clean, and there's some images that I would not show on YouTube. Period. Not even sure. I should put it over here where I come up a bit more, right? There we go. There we go. Skyrealms of Jorune. That's what I'm covering tonight. But you know what? I can get on a bit early here and talk to you guys for a bit before it starts. That's good. I think what happened is I had to unplug my mic and plug it back in before I started. I should have refreshed the entire thing before I did that, but it is what it is. Thank you for letting me know early, monkey. I appreciate that. But yeah, Skyrealms of Jorune. Very principles in old school gaming can be similar from one game to another because old school has a mindset that is very similar to the experience in the field. And I keep preaching that because realistically, when I cover old school games from between 74 and 1999, a lot of them have the same typical principles, right? Like combat is dangerous. It's not often. There's all these other aspects of the game. In this one, there's a unique magic system. Energy. Thank you, monkey. Yeah. But there's like a unique magic system. Let's see what we call it. So this uses a D20. D20 roll lower most of the time. Pretty much that's it. The word species is used to describe the different beings you're going to play. Isho. That's like an energy magic system, something in that vein. Of course, Skyrealms has to do with floating islands, large floating land masses. I don't want to say too much because I'm going to go over this during the game. Terminology can be very dense in the game. The game is interesting. It's interesting. I'll wait till a few other people get around before I show the art again, but there you go, monkey. You get to see a few of the images up front. Well, pretty much that's it. But the imagery is important because the game is very unique. Why do I like Skyrealms of Jorune? It's one of the few games where I can say I played it and I ran it. And playing it made me want to run it because I personally like to challenge myself with some of the harder, well, at the time, back in the 90s, I like to challenge myself with some of the harder games that are considered to either play or run. So sometimes the games are just fantastic. And realistically, even the hard games are great, but I like to really go at them. Skyrealms of Jorune is considered in many ways a very hard game. That's why I will tell you, just try it. Well, that's a little bit deceiving. Just try it because, well, if we told you too much about it, you probably wouldn't want to. It's not that it's bad. It's not that it's bad in the concepts, right? Very good. Just very challenging to play. A lot of players quit. A lot of players. And it's not the mechanics. Mechanics are just like old school. Like this one, slight bit of crunch, I guess, in mechanics. But realistically, it's the performance. And not just of the game master. This is one where performance of the player is actually really focused on. It's a big issue, performance in this game for both the game master and the player. So a lot of players do quit it because it's going to expect a lot of you. Now, do a lot of players just quit that are hobbyists? No, but it can be pushy on them. But when you get to the vast majority of people, yeah, you know how that works. A lot of these guys, they do not like challenging games like Skyrealms or Jorune, and it's challenging to run it, challenging to play it as far as performance. All right, and the game is all about that. Like this game is the feel is important, but the feel is challenging to create, and you'll know it right away. Especially the terminology, like the linguistics of the game. Something very challenging, and it's on purpose. Very much on purpose. Of course, I'll put the art up again. We'll put pieces up, here and there. Let's go a little bit sharing again. So take a look. Just have a good look at this. Of course, humans, but you get to see some of the aliens or species, right? That's one picture of them. One picture. I'll leave that up for a minute. I know I'm behind a thing here, but that can be... Just leaving it up so you guys can see that for a moment. And I'll take that down. I'll show a few more as we go forward. Few more. Very important stuff. Let's see. Maybe we could do it this way. No, I don't want to add media. Other. There we go. It's a better way to share it. It does move chat off, but I can see chat. I can see chat on the side. Do not worry. That's one of the images. Here's another image right here. I got to be careful when I share these. Well, I had to be careful about what art I chose too, because some of it is, I know YouTube would not be happy. So very picky over what images I would show. YouTube would not be happy with some of these. Well, some of the ones that were on option. I'm like, no, we'll share those. A little bit too much. Now, the images give you a certain idea of what they're going for. A very alien concept, obviously. I thought it's appropriate to talk about a game like this, especially during the whole alien gimmick. I thought this is interesting in its own way. Like here's one that's really, really alien. Skyrealms of Jorune. So I did a few videos today. I don't want to spend too much time on that. There, have a peekaboo. I hope people got to check them out. I did the story one with Joe, the farmer. And I did one that was a personal video, just one where I was being I like to be open and honest about who I am, how I see things, and I don't want to do a lot of non-TTRPG content. You know, every so often I'll do a personal video, and I don't make it a big part of my content, but it is part of just getting to know me, right? And how I see things. So I figured I'd put that up today, which here's my take on today's world and what I'm doing, and because I hear so many things out there, or people are on here for fun, or you're expected to be on here for fun. There's a lot of implications, you know, and things people imply when they speak on here, and I'm like, well, look, dude, I'm not on here in some ridiculous way like I expect to get rich, but I am as far as on here for a little bit more than just fun. Oh, I have to show some of this to you, my man. No way around it. Welcome, Craig. So this is, they call the game sci-fi fantasy, so I'll go with that explanation. Here's an image, Craig. I can see what you're saying on the side, so don't worry. Chat will come back up after I get some of these images off, but here's one. Have a peekaboo there, Craig, for a moment. Have a peekaboo. Here's another one of that guy. Great art. Oh yeah, I wanted to show these off for that reason. I went and found these because they're so important to the game. Like some other games, I don't feel like I have to show you the art. Other people are showing you the art. Like Monkey, you show a lot of art. I knew you would appreciate this, Monkey, because you're always posting up good covers and stuff like that. I knew Craig would because this is like sci-fi alien. So I wanted to show this off to you guys for sure. And the last one I'm going to put up, because I'm not going to put up the color one. That one is, well, it's iffy here on YouTube. That one is iffy. Because there's so many iffy images with this stuff that you know YouTube, and it's so I'm very careful. But I thought some of this looks pretty fucking wild. Now the images, what I would say about them is, it's a game that's giving you images for a feel. So I want to also remind you that that's important to old school games, but how do you then create that? Well, that's where performance becomes a big issue, right? Like the new school games care a lot less about this stuff. They don't care about delving into the background to say goblins. That was my point of covering them, like compared, right? No, I don't know who the artist is exactly. I have some information in my thing. It's just I basically went around just searching for the art because it was suggested to me to show the art. I think I got it probably about 45 minutes ago. I went around looking for some pieces, and I already knew, like I was warned, like if I went around and got some pieces of art for this stream, which I wasn't even sure I was going to do. Some of it could be very picky for YouTube and the way YouTube reacts, but no, I don't know the artist right off. I'll be real with you. But yeah. It's just new school games care a lot less about the feel of a world, you being a character living in it. You're playing a game, and so that's why the goblins will be more simplistic in 5e, say, than they are in second edition, where second edition has a whole background on the goblins to make them more suited to the world instead of suited to good combat. It's like if realistically they're weaker or this or that, well then it's trying to be more real, but the goblins in a world instead of goblins for gameplay. I see 5e has their goblins for gameplay. Second edition has its goblins for the aesthetic of the world that you're in, the game, the feel. And I can show you great images, but it can be defeated if you're going into a game that doesn't care about the feel of a game. And that's why old school is really all about experiencing the world, being a character in the world, and that becomes so important. So that's why you'll look at combat and go, well, why is combat maybe minimal or dangerous? Well, because having combat as dangerous and minimal in a game is something more realistic, and you can feel it if you just buy in and play through that experience. And where you're not getting in as much combat, when it is, it's rare, you feel it, and it's dangerous, and it's meant to feel dangerous. So that danger all plays into the reality of the setting that you're in. And that's why old school gaming is about how you, like, you feeling the world, you having an experience in the game, right? And they thought that was so common of an expectation of the old school that most games are going to have that. Most games, like, there's a lot of little things I'll say about games that are like that, right? Thank you, Monkey. I appreciate that. My chat will keep up with this if I don't exactly have certain information. I definitely appreciate that a lot. So, yeah, like, for me to show you the images can be great, but if you don't have a high-performing game master, you get what, like, that's why performance in old school is so important. Because I can give you an image, but if I'm a generic game master running a mediocre game and I'm slow, well, your experience will not match the art that you're seeing. So it becomes really important that if for me to give you what the image is trying to get you to feel, is I have to be up here. Now in this game, unlike some other games in old school, the players can ease up a bit depending on the game. They don't have to put as much in work as a game master. Where Skyrealms of Jorune can be very challenging for players as well. Like, very challenging. Because there's an expectation to linguistics to the game, right? Like the names of things. So important. And you could play sort of humans. You could play a few different species as humans, but some other species can be very challenging to play because when you look into their background, that type of way you're talking about them and how you play them is so important. Like, you know, I said a lot of guys have a hard time playing elves in old school D&D, and I'll have somebody come across and go, "Oh no, they can play elves right good," and I'm like, "Well, my standard's up here, your standard is here, so what you call good, I would call trash." So sorry, that's where we disagree. But when you get to Skyrealms of Jorune, you can't get around it. If you don't follow the very challenging stuff with some of the species, you're really not going to portray them, and you're going to notice it, and you're going to feel it. It is a human wearing a skin suit. That's if you play it in a generic way. So you have to follow what it says, and it can make them very challenging to play for players, especially if you got a game master performing up here with the expectation that players really do the stuff, do the work in this game. You want to know what? When I played it, I played with some people that flopped, and I played with a game master I thought was all right, but other players flopped. I played it really well. Oh, definitely, Craig. Definitely. But then I went ahead and decided, okay, I love challenging games. Like, why did I ever run Skyrealms of Jorune? Because I like challenging games. I personally go after very challenging games. I love to do that. I love games because it's not challenging. It's not a brag thing, but if you get comfortable running, like performing with games in old school, and you get good at it, like just good, like not, oh, brag, but once you can do it, that means I can give you the experience that designer wants. And I can do it quite comfortably. I did it quite comfortably with this game. It can just be very challenging for players. Though I like the challenge. And actually, I like the game. Like, the game is great, but the game is challenging. So you got to get players that are going to be okay with the challenge. But once you find them, you're good. That's great. Like, you can find players like that. It's just, I would say the vast majority of players in the old school weren't good at the game. Vast majority of guys that were going to run games, Skyrealms of Jorune, nope. just not up their alley. Because the game has an expectation, pretty high expectation. Is it crunchy? As far as information, it can feel crunchy. Lore dumping is the same. Like a lot of old school games have some, not all, but a lot of them have these extreme amounts of lore to them. And it's like I'll end up giving the same advice I give to so many other games. Game master definitely has to learn the lore. Sorry, man, that can be a turnoff. I know for guys that want to run it sometimes, but you got to learn the lore. You got to really dig into it. When it comes to how you teach it to play or how players experience it, it's you want to give just enough to start the game, and then you want to have them learning the lore in game with their characters. That's it. Experience the lore through learning, through interacting with the game in the world, right? That's how you take the lore in. If you try to do a lore dump on players, you're done. You're done. Yeah, we'll cancel out on you. I remember that when I went to first play before I ran it, the game master should have figured that out because he lore dumped on us. Now I read it, I went through the lore, all the other players, we get there, and he starts saying stuff, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And they're like, what's that? It just meant every other player didn't bother taking the lore dump in. And even one of the guy who read some of the stuff, he could not remember half the stuff he went through. I knew right away. It's so one of the things I learned early about lore dumping. Most games like could be earthed on too. You don't do heavy lore dump. You don't do it with Ruin Quest. You don't do it with Earthed On. Most of the ways is you do just enough to start the game. You want to give enough like local information, and then it's okay. I'm going to bring in more through the interacting with the game for the players end, right? And they'll take it in better, and it becomes interesting. It's a way more interesting way to learn lore is to get into the game and you're running into it. That's a way more interesting way. But if you do lore dumps, you snap players. It's like telling the game master, dude, there's a reason these guys aren't running the game. Right? There's an expectation that you are capable of taking this in, and you should be able to if you're going to game master. Because back then, old school was you had to be talented to be in the game master chair. Like there's a reason. It's not like anybody can run 5e now. Nobody could just run old school games, at least not credibly based on what the designer expected. Old school games was either you're talented, and if you're not, it's going to stick out. Like if you suck, people will know you suck. And if you're good, people will know you're good. Because the game depends more on performance than you just knowing a bunch of rules. Just true. No getting around it at all. But I like that personally because I'm a talented guy. So, of course, I mean, maybe it's easy for me to say because I have the skill to do it. But for the next guy that doesn't, he might be like, ugh. That's why I really frown. Like, if people will wonder why I call old school dungeon masters manual DMs. These were AD&D 1E guys. And AD&D 1E was exception for this. It was bad. Tournament DMs type that would use the modules. My issue with them is I wouldn't even accept them as real dungeon masters or real game masters. And people are like, well, I had nothing against the modules. It's just if you're doing raw and module, you're a machine. You're not even trying to show off, and you have no skill, no talent. The second you get away from tournament play and go back to BECME, well, BECME, you couldn't do that. BECME, you had to be a good DM. You had to have talent to run that and get anything good out of it. You get over to AD&D 2nd edition, same thing. AD&D 1E had the tournament play, which was allow you to bypass having talent. You run it raw, you run the module. What about your talent? These were the guys that didn't want to do social interaction. I'm like, you don't even know the designer wants that, do you? Like, you have no idea. Like, you depend on the module, and you depend on the book. And that's why there's rule lawyers in your game, because the book is king in a module DM's game. Even though the DMG, the Dungeon Master guy, says the DM is king, go to a module DM. He's doing raw out of the book and the module. I'm like, yeah, well, the book is king in your game. It's one of the only games where I've seen guys get away with no talent. That's why I still frown mainly at AD&D 1E, as the only edition of Dungeons and Dragons to allow guys that didn't have any talent for running games to get away with running games. And well, I say this, it sounds egotistic, but it's the way I felt. Because back in the old school, you were judged if you had no talent. It was common. Like if you sucked, people knew. Like if you ran second edition, you would know the good guys that were running it, and you would know the guys that suck at it. And it would stick out to you because there was no tournament style. It was back to performance, and performance says if you're good or if you suck, and people would know the difference. And if you were good, that's how you get your players at the table to stay. If you sucked, that's how you went away. AD&D 1E, you could still do that, but if you went to module tournament play and stayed to raw, you could have no talent at all for running games and skate by. Beckme, you couldn't do that. Go back to Beckme, you have to be good. Skyrealms of Jorune, if you're not good at running the game, it will cave in on you. It will be generic. It's what I said recently about Cyberpunk too. That was my issue with that. And I know I drill on this stuff sometimes, but I just don't hear people talking about it. Like they're not really, I hate to say it, I think some guys aren't real old school. Like they came back to the old school maybe later. I'm like, well, if you're really from the old school era, and I say most guys didn't run Cyberpunk as far as the way the designer expects, you should agree. You should know this. You should know performance is the key. If you're real old school era, you know performance is what is decided because the designers are making it for hobbyists that they assume have the talent. Like they're not even shy about it because, again, I remind people like Skyrealms of Jorune, even the Bond game, these are guys making games where they have no idea who the majority is going to be later. They think wargamer, hobbyists, take it serious, focused, talented people. That's what they think. Shame it wasn't that for a lot of people, but I mean, if you're lucky enough that the hobbyists actually got their hands on the game, you can get whatever the game was trying to do. And it's so important to point that out because that's an important element of old school. And I don't want to lie to new school people. They'll come here and hear about games. I'm like, well, let me be real with you. I talk about a lot of games I promote, and I think they're fucking great. Chivalry and Sorcery. All kinds of games here I talk about that I think are fucking great. Rollmaster, the whole thing, Aftermath. Those games absolutely depend on talented people to run them to get what the game is expecting you to get out of it. And if you're just some guy casually trying to run one of these games, generic, no good, and you'll hear the complaints from people. If they play one of these games with some lazy game master, it'll be like, well, that game is generic. I'll be like, it's not the game, dude. It is the person. So old school games depend on talent. So if you're new school and you have talent, that's why I want to tell those guys, you should definitely, because 5e is not going to let you play out your talent that much. 5e, you're going to be so stuck on mechanics and rules that your talent is secondary. And the guy who sucks can skate by. That was my issue with AD&D 1E. Tournament play, raw, mixed with modules means you, and I use the term module dungeon master to describe a person I would not count as a real game master. Why wouldn't I count? Because I didn't feel like they had any fucking talent at all. Talented guys would not let the book rule over them. So when you say raw is AD&D, I'm like, well then, all right, well, how does that work, guys? Gary Gygax, how does that, it's contradiction. Gary Gygax says DM is king. All right, if it's raw and a player can call you out based on the book is king. So which is it? The DM or the book? It can't be both. It's one or the other. If the book can overrule the guy running the game, the book is king. If the guy running the game overrules the book, the guy running the game is king. You can't have it both ways. You can only have it one. So who's king? The book or the guy running it? Period. It's the guy running it. That's why raw is secondary. It's not as important as the guy who runs it. It doesn't matter if I make a change, I'm responsible. So the change doesn't matter. So all this bullshit about don't change the game, complete bullshit. It's simply the responsibility of the person running the game. If you make a change, you got to sell it to your players. You got to run a quality game. You got to perform well. And if you do all that, players come back to your table. That's as simple as it is, right? So it's just basically you're taking responsibility for what you do. And so most of the time, if somebody says that game is generic, it's usually the person running it that's generic, right? Just saying. Just saying. It's just it's a talent thing where new school is a lot less about talent. Just a lot less about talent. It's I get it. It's a way to make money. That's what AD&D was trying to do. They were like, well, we only have so many guys that can run these games really good. How do we open it up to more people to play the game? Like, how do we develop more DMs? Well, you have to make it that the player or some generic person can walk in who's a mediocre person and run the game. And if you can't have mediocre people run the game, that's going to be a big issue because you need the DMs to sort of be there for the players. You need that system to work. And Beckme had a harder time with it. That's the truth. If you're old school, you'll know what I'm talking about. Beckme people, a real Beckme old school person from the actual era of old school, who isn't someone who came in later and just like Beckme, will tell you right away, yeah, they had an issue with that. They started having a surplus of players show up for original and Beckme. Problem is, a lot of players, very few DMs. The second edition figured out the magic. I don't know what it did, but it's the one edition from TSR that figured out how to produce a ton of DMs, but still based on performance. It's the only edition between WotC and TSR that did that. So I don't care what anybody says. That's why I think second edition is really unique and special. There is AD&D 1E made it that mediocre people could run. Second edition was able to produce a surplus of talented guys that would run the game. Beckme didn't do that. That was a big issue for Beckme. They had a problem with a surplus of players lacking DMs. People forget that unless you're really from the old school. Like if you're really in that era and you talk to the guys that were active at that time, especially, they tell you the truth. Yeah, before AD&D 1E and tournament play came in, raw with modules, they had an issue. They had an issue of lack of DMs. So what did tournament play do? It made very untalented guys be able to run the game. But remember, it's back in the old school era where talent is up here. Now, I know this is not always appealing to draw people to my channel. It's just, what's the point of lying to you? I'm covering games where I tell guys about games. What am I doing? I tell you, you have to perform. You have to perform. There's no lie to it. So there's no reason for me to tell you something else. And it's because I hear about so many things about D&D. I do push back because that's just it. A bunch of games outside of D&D, there's none of that shit. You won't go to any game outside of D&D. Even Call of Cthulhu, it's going to be really not a good game if you don't get a good person performing. But it's expected that you got good people performing. If not, even as simple as Call of Cthulhu is, it can be very fucking boring if you put it in the wrong hands, right? You put it in the, here's this guy who's not that good. Well, that's going to suck. Nowadays, it's just a way to make money. Pathfinder is the same way. Pathfinder is another game where I hate to say it. I know a lot of guys like Pathfinder 2nd Edition and Pathfinder. I'm like, yeah, but you don't need no talent to run the game. You don't need any talent to run 5e. You just need to follow all the rules and let the book take care of it. The book is king. That's it. The book is king. It just gives you tricks so you can come across like you know what you're doing. Yet if I threw any, if I took even 80% of the 5e DMs and I said, here's an old school game, go ahead and run it. Like Cyberpunk, for example, or even Traveler, to be honest. Most of these guys would absolutely collapse. And Traveler is another game where I like Traveler, but what I didn't like about it was just seeing so many guys I thought were just iffy when it came to run the game. The game had a certain feel if you had the right person running it. That feel really becomes mediocre. And I hated meeting guys that I would meet players that their only experience with gaming might be a mediocre experience, and they'd be like, "Well, that's really great." I'd watch what they're doing. I was like, "Okay, well," and there's Black Rose. Good. You're here for the story, but good evening, crafted humans. We are put together characters. Here, I'll show some art. Now that you're here, let's do some art. Do some art. You scroll. It's Miles Tebbs is the guy who did the art here. It's one. It's one piece. One Piece. There's an anime. Take a look at this stuff because this is important to the feel of this game. The art, a lot of people said that like the art was very important to this game because it communicates a feel that the designer wants. It's not just cool art. The designer really said, this is, if a game master runs my game, or the person that runs a game runs it the way the designer intends, the art and the experience should match as far as the intended experience and feel you get from seeing this. And one more that I'll share with this one. I don't want to share the other one too much. The one in color, that's iffy because still YouTube. Most of the art here is iffy with YouTube. Especially this, there's some like nude people in some of the art. Some like sci-fi fantasy. Sci-fi fantasy. I hope you guys get to see the story thing with Joe. I don't want to go on about that too much, but I thought that was interesting. That was me being creative, right? And I wanted to give a sort of funny, ha-ha, sort of a little bit of a dark comedy of what's a Dungeons and Dragons game, old school, what you're expected to do. That you're the farmer, you start, you sort of go into the dungeons, and then by the end, you finally become somewhat of a hero and fight the dragon, and you don't make it home. Looks a bit like earlier editions of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, but it's more Lovecraftian direction. It definitely has that type of what people would call Lovecraftian. Yeah. Warhammer, my only problem with some of the art I see with Warhammer is I wonder how the feel goes, because I admit not knowing much about the game, I will assume, but is the art matching the feel? And then again, do you have someone who has to perform a pair to get the feel? And the feel being so important that you can understand why the art in old school is so important. Like the authentic, like new school art is polished, but too polished. Old school art is a little rough and gritty, but there's an authentic meaning behind it because it's meant to give you a feel. And that feel is supposed to be also expressed in the game, right? And how do you express a feel in the game? Well, again, this is me comparing Goblins, the second edition, to 5e. Goblins, the second edition, are meant to be realistic to the world. Not good for combat. Not like made for a combat game, right? It's made for a game to be dangerous. Why is combat more rare in old school? Because it's meant to be dangerous, because that dangerous side is part of the feel of the world. It's dangerous. You're meant to experience that danger, especially in combat. So the game wants you to feel that, yes, you can die easily. This is danger you're meant to actually experience and feel when you play the game, because the feel, the experience, is the most important part of most old school games, if not all of them. Some people would say they tried with some games and just failed. Some games, I find that true, but some games it is performance of people. Some of the hero games, Heroes Unlimited to me gave you street heroes, which felt pretty realistic. Like, I like that. But it's what kind of heroes are you going for? So that's especially important. Like, if you're trying to go after certain types of heroes in certain comic books, okay, some can flop as far as what they're, the episodic shit. It's not as good as you'd like it to be, even if somebody ran it pretty good. But in most cases, even those, if you had somebody good running it, they'd run pretty well. But a lot of guys would tell me hero games, old school hero games didn't work that well. I'm like, well, is it the game that failed or the person running it? Because old school games depend on performance and talent. So I keep drilling on it, but it's so true. And I want everybody who comes and listens to these streams to know that if I pitch a game to you that sounds really appealing, I want it to appeal to you. But I don't want you to feel tricked if you go purchase the game. Like, I don't want you to be somebody with some money and you go purchase an $80 game. You're like, man, he pitched it. Sounds incredible. You're going to play it. And you're like, oh, man, what the fuck is this shit? Trust me, it is what I say it is. But why are you having this bad experience given I made it sound like a fucking great game? Well, I haven't lied to you at all. It is a great game. And what I'm talking about, you can experience. But if you have a mediocre game master, say it, guy who runs it as if they're mediocre, doesn't put energy into what they're doing, that game is going to feel generic. I had a guy printed off Cyberpunk after I did my Cyberpunk stream. He said, we tried Cyberpunk, man. I don't know. Like, you say it can feel generic. It really does. I'm like, yeah, but here's the issue. How are you running the game? Went over it and I said, well, if you don't run it up here and you run it down here, yeah, generic. I said, are you doing 70 to 80% of the scenes where you're getting the stuff into the characters? And now he admits it more like 20 or 30%. I'm like, there you go. Like, I don't tell you 70, 80% because 20 or 30 works. Like, I have experience. So when I tell you this, I'm telling you pure on. If I say most scenes have to be this for you to get the feel of a setting, I'm not giving you bullshit. This is why I call it fact-based. These are all fact-based streams. So if I give you something, that's real. I'm not telling you something that is just opinion, right? So I say, for most of these scenes, you got to be doing this. Well, do you want to have that experience that you heard me talk about? Yeah? Well, then here's your choice. Do what I'm telling you, right? And you have the experience, or do what you want, which is like something opposite. And you'll hear the complaints. That's why I focus on criticism, because it sounds right plain Jane, some of the criticism that you hear out there. The reason I cover criticism sometimes with some of the games and the defenses is because, well, first off, here's the defense, why it's quality. But why were these complaints would be very basic? Why would they be very basic? Sound like, well, man, it just sounds like they're just complaining about this. No, they're complaining about it because they probably went and played under someone who ran it down here. And so the complaints are legit. Like, they actually feel like they played a generic game. Like, well, the way you did, there's no doubt. The experience that you're meant to get requires performance. That's why the mechanics, again, in most old school games are really simple. Right? Really simple, because the designer concerns himself more with you performing at the table than they concern themselves with having a bunch of rules for you to follow. And it's like, I don't know. I just had a few guys talk to me about this stuff, and I'm like, well, I got to drill on these points because this is the biggest difference between the new school and the old school. There's no bigger difference. Feel is very important. If you do a lot of combat in D&D, for example, like, yeah, I mean, you can have fun with it and it can be thrilling here and there, but you do have to lose something. Like, you are losing something. There's just no getting around it. If players keep going after combat, yeah, that has its own fun, but you're losing something. There's no doubt. You can't get around that. The style of the Joe video was a surprise, and point you made was impossible to miss. I knew it was really clear, but I also wanted to show off that I could have some fun with it. But it is very simple what D&D is. And, I mean, the way you paint it up is going to be the interesting part, right? But it's going to be the same routine every time. You're a farmer. You go in, you don't really worry about fighting. You barely get by. You're trying to survive. At one point, past level 3, you're a little bit more capable. It's safer than to fight without just losing characters. Now, second edition is, I lean in with Black Rose here because I do agree with them. Second edition is the most survivable edition out of the editions. Like it gives you a little bit of more leeway than the other ones, but it still has the same principle if you want the experience, right? And it does small little changes the experience. If I take players into second edition and they avoid a lot of it and they're trying to survive, the tension that gets built up is not in combat. And there is exciting parts outside of combat, but you need to be doing that to know that. And if you're skipping some of that and going into combat instead, the tension dies down. And if it dies down, that's an experience loss. Like that, it's a over the 3 levels that's creating a feeling. These are all small things, but they develop. It's like the speed and combat thing. It sounds so minor to knock off a few little combat things to get slightly more speed. People wonder why I think it's so important, but this is an opinion of a very experienced game master. So I'm telling you, I know it seems minor to you, but that speed factor is feel. And the more you put layers up, like, oh, you got to have that extra dice roll. Okay, you crack the feel a bit down. Oh, another one, the feeling keeps going down. And you might think it's cool in a certain way, but here's what I guarantee you. You take that layer away, and it starts speeding up. You'll then go into it, you have the feeling, and you're like, oh, wow, that is different. Yes, because you feel it now. Like you feel it through the chaos. But what happens with good players is, or players just period, over a period of time, speed, well, first off, when you're new to a game, or new to my game, you're going through a speed, say in second edition, it can feel chaotic. But if you become an experienced player in my game, the chaos turns to order. Like you'll just get used to the speed. You will adjust to it. It won't always be that. It's like seeing Black Hawk Down, where there's a part, I'm going to start in a minute, but there's a part in Black Hawk Down where there's a young guy at one of the Humvee things and one of the experienced soldiers. And the experienced guy, they're getting shot, like there's pings going by. The experienced guy is like standing out here like this. And the young guy, he's like, by the Humvee like this, just barely sticking out. He's like, oh, we're getting shot at. What should we do? He's like, you could probably shoot back down. But the guy is just standing out in the open. Because as an experienced warrior, he knows most shots are going to miss him. There's a great, before I start here, Ross Kemp has a great thing. I watched this Ross Kemp thing where he's a British journalist. I think that's his name. And he's going into with the British, and he's never been to war, right? He's out with these British troops, and for the first time, they're going to get shot at. And him and the cameraman lay just flat on the ground, like they just dive down, scared. When the cameraman finally brings up the camera, all the British guys are just down to one knee. Now, here's what's funny, by the time Ross Kemp has done his coverage, like going around with these guys for a few months and then to the Americans, by the time they're getting shot at like later, now Ross Kemp is just down to one knee. Because experience takes chaos and turns to order. That will be the same thing in a game with fast combat. You'll adjust to it. It won't feel like the same chaos later, right? Okay, minor stuff. All right, let's start. Skyrealms, a Jorune influence and birth of the game. One of the most unique RPG worlds of the 1980s. Skyrealms, a Jorune, released in 1986 and immediately stood apart from most RPGs of its era. At a time when many RPGs were still heavily shaped by token fantasy, dungeon crawling, medieval Europe, standard sci-fi tropes, Jorune tried to create something genuinely alien. Not just elves in space, not just D&D with sci-fi weapons. The setting aimed to feel like a completely different civilization with strange cultures, unfamiliar biology, floating islands, energy manipulation, sorry about background there for a second, unusual social systems, non-human races that actually felt non-human. Based on performance, that was extremely ambitious for the time. Main creator, Andrew Lecker, whatever you want to say. I say Lecker. Andrew Lecker, that's what we'll say. The game was primarily created by Andrew. One thing worth mentioning for sure up front here, Jorune feels deeply personal in a way many RPG settings do not. It does not feel like assembled fantasy tropes. It feels like somebody obsessively trying to build an eternally believable world with its own ecology, cultures, trade systems, very important part of the game, geography, social structures, history. That became one of the game's defining traits. Fans of Jorune often praise the setting material more than the mechanics themselves. The setting became the star. The setting was the game. The 1980s RPG environment matters here. Jorune appeared during an era where RPG experimentation was exploding. By the mid-1980s, Traveller existed, Ruin Quest existed, Gamma World existed, Tunnels and Trolls existed, and so did Call of Cthulhu. Designers were starting to realize RPGs did not have to follow the D&D structure. Jorune belongs to that wave of experimental RPG worlds. But even among experimental games, Jorune stood out because it committed hard to cultural immersion and environmental detail. A lot of games say this world is different. Jorune tried to make players feel culturally displaced. It's the way Andrew says it anyway. Science fantasy instead of pure fantasy or hard sci-fi. One reason Jorune confused some players, it blended genres heavily. The game mixes science fiction, mysticism, post-collapse civilization, bioengineering, tribal cultures, floating technology, energy powers, ecology sort of world building. The results feel less like Star Trek and more like surviving inside of an ancient alien dream world. As the imagery, as I was showing you that imagery at the start, that gave the setting a very unusual identity. TSR style fantasy was dominating the market at the time. This matters. In the mid-1980s, the safest commercial move was usually straightforward fantasy or recognizable sci-fi. Stuff I was saying, I think the Monkey the other night, about that sort of generic way of selling to the bigger market. So if you were to focus on one thing, you might pigeonhole yourself. Jorune was neither. The setting used original terminology. This was the linguistic stuff. Layered cultures, unfamiliar social assumptions, unusual geography, species with their own identities instead of simple fantasy stereotypes. This made the game fascinating to some players and intimidating to others. The split became part of Jorune's legacy because it is talked about. A lot of players would abandon this game. It's well known for just being really, really hard on players because usually, even old school games, the hardest work is the game master. And this one, the performance of players, this in Castle Falkenstein, the performance of players is deeply important, right? The world building was extremely dense. Jorune developed a reputation for very deep setting material. The game explored politics, trade, ecology, religion, species interaction, technology, remnants, social class, geography, culture, and importantly, the setting details often interconnected. The world felt layered and lived in. This was not generic fantasy kingdom number 4. Jorune fans often describe the setting as something you study as much as play. It's one of the rare games where the expectation on players, it surprises me. If you read the material, you'll understand this. But it does. It puts heat on players, unlike most games. It can make players bounce. The planet of Jorune, which I'll go into the setting later, but we'll go into some details here. The core premise: humans colonized the planet Jorune long before game's present era. Over time, civilizations collapsed, technology was lost, cultures transformed, humans adapted, native species remained, hybrid societies formed. One important distinction: humans are not naturally dominant here. Jorune often feels like a world humans are still adapting to rather than fully controlling. That helps separate it from many traditional RPG settings where humans automatically become the center of everything. Okay, now we're going to talk about issue, which is going to be something we cover later, but it's going to be good to know now. The issue concept, one of the most famous elements of Jorune, issue. Issue is a mysterious ambient energy flowing through the world. You might say this is its magic, but it's more than that. It's more than that. Different cultures and species interact with it differently. It functions somewhat like magic, energy manipulation, environmental force, spiritual phenomenon, but importantly, it is deeply tied into the setting's ecology and identity. Issue helps separate Jorune from more traditional fantasy magic systems. Species were a huge focus. A lot of RPGs in the 1980s included humans with forehead differences. Jorune tried to go further. Species often had distinct psychologies, cultural identities, social roles, communication styles, linguistics, very important in this game. And again, it can turn off a lot of people. Biological differences. Some groups felt difficult for humans to fully understand, humans in the game. The commitment to non-human behavior became one of the game's strongest reputations. This is where I say, unlike other games where you could sort of slide by playing elves, sort of playing them okay, this game is going to put it on you. If you want the aliens to feel like the designer intends, you have to fucking play them the way it says. And it gives you enough information to do so. It's just very challenging. It's just a lot of work on you. You can get used to it, but you got to do a lot of work early on. The art style helped define the game. I hope I made that point clear. The art style helped define the game. Jorune's visual identity mattered enormously. The art emphasized surreal landscapes, floating architecture, strange clothing, bizarre wildlife, unfamiliar environments. There's a lot more art out there. It's just, I'm again very careful because there's a lot of nudity in that art. A lot of the artwork look closer to surreal sci-fi paintings than traditional fantasy illustrations. The visuals reinforced the feeling that this was not a standard RPG world. A lot of players became interested in Jorune simply because it looked unlike almost anything else on the shelf. It had such a unique look. Such a unique look. The game was published by Skyrealms Publishing. The game originally came from Skyrealms Publishing. Unlike giant industry players, Jorune did not have massive mainstream support or distribution power. That mattered because while the setting gained a loyal cult audience, it never achieved the widespread reach of Dungeons & Dragons, Traveller, Call of Cthulhu. Jorune became more of a cult classic than a mainstream hit. When I mention this game, some people never heard of it. Even though people have talked about it on the internet, it's not like it's new for me to talk about it. Just a lot of people just still haven't heard of it. They just don't look for it, right? Unless you run into the content on this, you just might not know, right? Why Jorune became a cult classic. Jorune developed a reputation for originality, ambition, deep world building, immersive setting detail, cultural complexity. People who loved it often really loved it. But the same elements that attracted fans also scared off players. The double-edged blade there. Heavy terminology, dense lore, unusual setting assumptions, difficult learning curve, very difficult. It demanded more investment from players than many RPGs of the era. Usually it's the game master, This game is the game master and the players have to put in a lot of work. One of the most important things about Jorune. Jorune represents a period in the RPG history where designers were willing to take enormous creative risks. The game did not try to imitate D&D simply or simplify itself for mass appeal, chase mainstream fantasy expectations. It tried to create something genuinely different. Whether someone loves the game or not, that ambition is a huge part of why people still remember it today. I mean, it's so unique. If you knew about it, there's no way you won't talk about it in that way. I don't care if you like the game or not. You would have to acknowledge it right away. Now, for some people might get around, I'll quickly do this because I want to remind people. Here's some of the crazy art that I just talked about being so important to the game. Give people like a moment to look at that. Here's another piece of that. And I have one more to show after this one. Just look at that, man. It is meant to get a certain feel, like to make you feel a certain something. But then the game, based on performance, is also meant to repeat this sort of feeling in the game. So the guy really went after art that he felt would really express what the game itself was trying to get you to feel during the experience of play. It's just, I showed these quite a few times, so I don't want to just, between jumping stuff here, I don't want to just spend too much time on it right now. We'll do a bit more later, if need be. Okay, let's just jump right into it. So I gave you a sort of rundown, basics on setting, very basic fluff, the background, how it came into being, who created it. Now we're going to go, and if you're a game master or a person interested in running this game, this is your part, how to run Skyrealms of Jorune. Jorune is not primarily about dungeon crawling, treasure accumulation, constant combat, fast power progression. The setting works best when players are interacting with it. Cultures, politics, ecosystem, trade's going to be very important. Dangerous environments, unfamiliar societies. A GM who treats Jorune like generic fantasy adventure with strange monsters usually loses what makes the game special. And I've seen guys try to do this. It's like it's generic fantasy adventure with strange monsters. If you run it like that, like you're running a D&D game, it will die. It will die. The setting should feel bigger than the players. One thing Jorune does very well, the world feels old, layered, and already in motion. Players are not automatically chosen heroes, legendary saviors, the center of civilization. The setting often works better when players feel like travelers, negotiators, explorers, merchants, scouts, sort of like foreigners, outsiders trying to navigate a complicated world. That perspective reinforces the tone of the setting. Remember, this stuff, to someone doing new school, they're like, yeah, but what about all the mechanics and rules? Isn't that important to talk about? That's no, mechanics are really simple. D20, mostly rolling low. It's majority of the game right there. Mechanics are not extremely hard, like mechanic-wise, as far as dice go. Culture should affect gameplay directly. Different groups should not just look different, they should affect negotiations, trade, and there's rules for all these different things. So when you read about the different species, it will have the way they negotiate is extreme, like rare, and they'll give you some rules. Well, not rules, but just ways of understanding it. Negotiations, so that they should affect negotiations, trade. Every time I say trade, you notice I'm saying that's important because trade can become a very massive part of the game. Alliances, reputation, hospitality, conflict resolution, travel safety. A region's customs should influence how players approach situations. I mean, you can't just approach every group the same way. They're that unique. And there is very specific differences. If you got a good game master running these things right, yes, players won't be able to just go, well, I traded with that, or I did this with this guy. You can't do the same thing over here. Players should feel like entering a new area requires adaptation, not just learning new monsters' statistics. In other words, it's about feel, not just about playing a game. Do not explain everything immediately. It's going to be very important. Part of Jorune's strength comes from gradual understanding. It doesn't say that well in the material. This is advice from me. If the GM immediately explains every culture, every creature, every historical detail, every strange phenomenon, the setting loses much of its impact, which is what the guy did when I first played it. And you do lose something. I wish I didn't know a lot of what I knew going into the game when I look back at it, right? Jorune works better when players slowly learn through travel, observation, mistakes, conversations, exploration. Let the world unfold naturally. The environment should constantly matter. Jorune's world is heavily shaped by geography, weather, terrain, environmental danger. The environment should actively affect gameplay. Examples: dangerous travel routes shaping trade. So if it's dangerous over here, you don't trade through that area. So it just basically, danger has an effect. And make sure that's a real thing. Isolated settlements developing differently. That should be a thing. That should be something you're trying to express. These guys are not the same. Their practices, their culture is different. That should be noticed. That should be communicated, noticed, experienced. Wildlife affecting regional politics. Basically, the threats that are out there and how you run things, you got to deal with things in a certain way. You can't just have politics be the same in each area. It's definitely going to be different regional every time because there's different wildlife. Wildlife is not just animals. Wildlife is species. Harsh terrain, limiting communication and movement. The world should feel physically difficult and sometimes unpredictable. So it's like just having harsh terrain. You can't just move through here the way you want to. But these things have to be pushed. They have to be pushed. It has to be stated, communicated, limitations put on what players can do if they want to go somewhere. And they're told this, right? Travel should feel like part of the adventure. Travel in Jorune should rarely feel like skip ahead to the next town. No, too many challenges. Moving through the world can create survival problems, trade opportunities. Well, if they don't trade through that area, it's dangerous, but you can find your way through and you're willing to keep doing that. You can go find someone who isn't just trading comfortably. So they might be able to have a surplus trading with you. Like, it's hard to get to these people all the time. If you can create that, trade opportunities. Political tension, cultural misunderstandings, especially cultural misunderstandings. If there's a certain culture that's really strange and you go up and talk to people there in a certain way, it might seem normal to you, but they might be offended if they don't understand what it is you're saying or your actions. And again, that game master has to take that into consideration for it to feel. If you don't do this stuff, generic. Environmental hazards are important. Encounters with strange species. It's just saying they're strange. If they're strange, not just in the art, they have to seem that way. They have to sort of be expressed that way. A lot of Jorune's atmosphere comes from experiencing the world directly rather than simply arriving at destinations. So you got to go through the terrain. It can't just be skip ahead. You sort of have this weird terrain to go through, weird wildlife, weird threats. Then you get to a place where the way they talk is not the way the last group of people talked. And that's up to the game master to make that real. You got to focus on that. If you don't focus on it, you won't do it. You'll be lazy. Adventure should grow naturally from the setting. One of the best ways to structure Jorune campaigns, let conflict emerge from the world itself. Good adventure sources include trade disputes, territorial conflict, cultural misunderstandings, resource shortages, dangerous migration routes, political instability, ecological problems, lost technology, species tensions. This is pressures. So you put the pressures in, the players will go interact with them. This old school. You don't need a plot beforehand. Plot will develop. You'll see where you can start making a bigger picture as you see how the players interact with this stuff. That's always important. So you'll hear D&D talk about plot before you start your game. Most games, almost all games outside of D&D is pressure, and that's going to create tension. All right, pressure creates everything else you need. The setting becomes much stronger when adventurers feel connected to the world instead of feeling randomly inserted. Combat should feel dangerous and situational. Combat in Jorune works best when it feels like survival pressure, territorial conflict, desperate defense, dangerous escalation, not endless balanced encounters. The world is not carefully scaled around players. Dangerous creatures, hostile regions, and violent conflicts may exist long before the party is prepared to handle them directly. That encourages caution, negotiation, preparation, retreat when necessary, intelligent travel planning. Combat should usually feel like a meaningful risk rather than routine filler between story scenes. The GM should use the environment during combat. Jorune combat can become much stronger when the environment matters. Examples, dangerous terrain limiting movement. So you want that to be a thing. Wildlife interfering unexpectedly. So you're dealing with some type of species. Next thing you know, the wildlife is actually coming into the middle of the actual encounter that you're doing. Unstable ruins creating hazards. Might be like, you can't breathe there. It's poisonous. There's chemicals. Wilderness forcing survival decisions during fights. Well, basically, it's like during the fight, you don't realize you're going to start running into holes in the ground, right? Or just little plots, what could be almost considered traps, but it's just environmental stuff that's going on. It's something you might not expect when you start into the fight, but there you are running into it in the middle of the fight. What do you do? The setting itself should constantly pressure players during dangerous situations. That helps combat feel connected to the world instead of detached from it like a game. Social interaction is extremely important. Really is here. Combat exists in Jorune, but a huge amount of gameplay can revolve around diplomacy, negotiation, alliances, trade, reputation, mediation between groups. The players are often dealing with societies that think differently from themselves. That creates some of the game's most memorable situations. So it's like it's little things like diplomacy. When you're actually dealing with, like, make that a thing. Negotiation, trying to get people to calm down or allow you to go in certain places, or can I travel here? Well, okay, that's a negotiation you have to have. That's up to the game master to create these situations where somebody might not let you pass. What about alliances? Is that holding together or very weak? And could you benefit two groups by, again, negotiating, through, establishing alliances or even strengthening them? Trade is a big time important thing in this game because there's so many foreign things that, especially getting to places like trade opportunity, everything. Reputation is important when you deal with different groups. Yes, if you're dealing with them poorly, that stuff is going to get out there, right? So reputation's big. Mediation between groups, again, this is the negotiation, the alliances. So it's all like sort of combined. The players are often dealing with societies that think differently from themselves. Like I said, that creates some of the game's most memorable situations. Really important stuff there. Alien species should feel distinct. One common GM mistake, at least from what I can tell, or I've seen, running every species like slightly modified humans. If you don't care about the stuff the game has put in for these different things and you don't apply it, that's how they'll come across. Jorune becomes much more memorable when species differences genuinely affect priorities, communication, emotional responses, social interaction, decision making. Not every species should react to the situations the same way humans would. That distinction helps preserve the setting's identity. Resource pressure can matter a lot. Jorune often works well when the world feels difficult to move through and survive in. Things like supplies, weather, safe travel routes, local allies, transportation, food access, environmental danger can become important parts of the gameplay. Not necessarily hardcore survival mechanics, but enough pressure to remind players this world is not easy or fully civilized. Jorune works best when the world feels active. Trade continues, politics continue, species conflicts continue, travel remains dangerous, settlements adapt to changing conditions. Players are interacting with an active world rather than a static adventure map. That living world feeling is one of Jorune's greatest strengths. So it's how you create a living world. That's really important. Like the game mastering is more about that stuff. The mechanics are so easy that what am I going to do? Tell you how to roll a d20 and get lower than roll a d20, roll under this number. That's not good game master advice for that game. The game master advice I'm giving you could sound typical to advice I've given for other games. I get that. I totally get that. I really do get it. But that stuff is so important. Like it's really important to drill on it too, because I don't think the game itself drills on it enough. And when I went to run it, I sort of take the vague ideas the game has given me, and then I drill on them because I understand that the designer wants a certain feel from the game. So once I know there's this, from my experience, he's saying, do this. This is the game I created for you to experience. And if you do this, you'll have the experience. And so to me, it becomes really important to understand that performance is so important, that the rules are very light. Like character creation here, I'll go into a bit more on certain things, but it's a bit more. Taking a big break before I jump into character creation. We got character creation, setting, and then going into worth mentioning. Now, this has some more meat on the bone, but the setting and the stuff I'm telling you now is the stuff that made the game famous. So I hope this stuff interests you. But if it doesn't, maybe the game won't interest you. Because if I tell you, well, what about the magic system? Well, I'm going to talk about issue. That's going to be the thing. But is there much beyond that? No, it's the setting and the feel. So the stuff I'm telling you about the species and dealing with the cultures and stuff, like that's a game right there. And if you can create the feeling, that's the amazing part of the game. So there's not much to give you beyond that. Like that's it. Combat is rare, right? Like you don't want to overdo combat, but consequence combat can be very different. That's, if you go around and you get to a certain group where if you talk to them in an insulting way, yeah, they may attack you. And when you do combat, it's meant to be interesting. So, the few times you get into combat, make it interesting. Make sure the terrain area, since you're on an alien world, might have potholes, or you might get to a ruin where it's not like ruin on Earth. It's ruins where chemicals can be that are hard to breathe. Or imagine you're in the middle of a fight with a humanoid species you're fighting, and some wildlife just comes tearing into the middle of the fight. Right? And that's meant to create feel, and it does. So me telling you to do that stuff is just deeply, deeply important for combat. You don't want to overkill on combat, but when it happens, you want to make combat special and unique. And so the advice I'm giving you to make it unique works. Like it might sound boom, but if you're sitting down, you run Skyrealms of Jorune, and you come back to this, you'll be like, yeah, that's actually really good advice. Like, just go ahead and run it the way I'm telling you. And you'll be like, yeah, he's right. That's actually pretty excellent. And the ideas that I'm reminding you to focus on this stuff, you'll realize how good it is that I'm telling you to focus on this. Because it's not like I got to teach you to fucking roll a d20. Right? And some of the other stuff I'm going to teach you is just in other parts of the whole thing here. Character creation, setting especially, because setting is the game. So in many ways, the game master sort of has to run that. Part of the setting stuff is almost part of the advice. Right? So when we get to the setting, you're going to hear stuff where you're like, yeah, I could use this. Well, I don't want to just give it all on how to run. If not, I'd be giving you most of the setting, because how to run it is more based on the setting itself. Right, so I'm just trying to measure these things out. And there's no good way to tell you beyond the way I'm telling you. Straightforward, giving you examples too. That's probably the good stuff that's really here. That's the meat. Just saying, if I didn't drill on this stuff and you thought it was cool for whatever other reasons I was, throwing at you, and you went to run it and I didn't make this stuff important, you'd have a generic game. Boring. For anybody who just comes around now, just so I could have it up for a minute here. This is what you're meant to be experiencing. This type of art, and it's meant to create a certain feeling. And if you're getting that from it, you start realizing why it's so important what I'm saying. Why it's so important. Really is important. Like imagine running into these guys. Well, how do you make that unique in the game? Well, it's not to do with rolling a d20. So when I say you do this and you make sure you're negotiating with the species, given the differences, this is it. If you do it, the art here that's sort of giving you a sort of feel from the art, you feel it in the game. That's why those things that might sound a little boring, once you're actually in the game or running the game or playing the game, you start realizing why all my advice here is extremely, extremely valuable. You're like, okay, he was right to drill on that. Yeah. I am. If not, it'd be no good advice. There's one thing to sell the game, but when I get to the advice areas, like how to run it or the character creation here, there's a little bit less promoting the game at these parts. It's more about just giving you good information. That's the point of it. It's advice. Like it's advice to how to run the game. Like I want to sell a bit of it. That will be setting. All right. That was a little bit of the fluff at the start, which I think sounded all right. Fluff is good. Setting will be a little bit more promoting. But on the advice areas, I want it to be advice. If it promotes the game at the same time, hey, some of my sort of speech here in between this stuff and telling you what I think, I hope this hypes the game up a bit. But then I got to be honest with you, because Skyrealms and Jorune is extremely hard. Like I'm not going into each little fucking linguistic thing on the species, but it's just unforgiving. And I know certain guys in the hobby will not like to hear things like, because I'm describing a game that they know they can't just go simply run in some simple way they run D&D. They'll go run a very basic D&D. Like the way they run is very basic, and they don't want to hear that. They think they're fucking great. I'm like, well, if you go run Skyrealms and Jorune, it's going to show you that what's going to show you if you are great, you'll know. Like if you can get out of it what I'm saying, you're fucking good. So now, if you really want to take my advice, it's still work on you. It's not like it'll be like a module or raw. You can make it if you're willing to put the work in. So I think anybody can actually achieve these games if they're willing to put the work in. Some guys are very talented. It's easier for them. Some guys, if you're not so talented, I just got to tell you, it's just work. If you work hard at it, anybody can run it and get the feel. But it's you got to accept that you got to do the work. Like Cyberpunk. I only go back to that as a good example. I don't find that hard. Like the stuff I say, doing 78% with the scenes to get the players to play the characters in a certain way, I actually find that really easy. I know a lot of guys tried that, and they find it extremely hard to do because you have to sit there and do a shitload of work on each scene before going in. Preparation for Cyberpunk, it's not like prepping other games, but you got to prep. You got to prep. That's not a no prep game. I mean, unless you're fucking super skilled, super talented, super fucking on your thing, and you can improvise a scene that will make players play their characters for who the characters are, specifically all 4 different characters in a scene. That you have to have scenes where all 4 players with different characters have to each feel inspired and pushed and pressured to play the characters for who they are. Right? So you can't have a scene that just makes that player play that character right. It has to make the other unique character playing the same, like their own way. So each scene has to have so many different things going on for the characters, for the pressure to go on. Now I can actually do that work easy. For a lot of guys out there, it's not easy. So either, well, and most of it, they don't do it. Some guys will at least do 30%, which is still not enough, not to get what the cyberpunk guy is saying. And then there's a lot of guys that try to run cyberpunk. They're just fucking lazy. They'll do an NPC in a certain way. What about the rest of the game? They're not doing anything I just said. They run it like a traveler. They don't even try to do the scenes in the way I suggest, but that's what the designer intends for you to do. Right? If you know it, you know it. And so I'm not making that shit up. But if you do what I say with cyberpunk, you realize why it's so special. That's when the players really go like, yeah, that's when your players walk away going, wow, that was intense. That was awesome. That was cyberpunk. Yes. Right. I mean, there might be guys out there that know some other things about cyberpunk that I don't care for, like things that are personal, like the Secret Service looked into cyberpunk. I'm like, well, does it have anything to do with running cyberpunk and having the experience? No. Then what's more valuable? You know about some Secret Service shit or getting good advice for how to run the game so you have the proper experience for cyberpunk. Now, the martial arts for certain games can be really good. That's one thing they pick up on that one. There's all kinds of unique ideas that are a little bit different, say, from Traveler, but cyberpunk is sort of like a Traveler game. You just have to accept it. It's built off a Traveler. Skyrealms of Jorune, baby. It's fucking beautiful, but it is weird. There's a reason they call it sci-fi, and you have to be into it. It's not so much... I don't know if Craig would like this one the same way he likes other space games, because this is sci-fi fantasy, where the fantasy, the lack of spaceships, is way more focused on than a space game in the typical sense. Right? It's just meant to feel this sort of fantasy. It's just like the opposite of medieval fantasy in the real world. But it's more of that in a certain sense than it is spaceship travel. But it is there. Just saying. Was the Steve Jackson games that got raided by SS after their GURPS Cyberpunk was published? I think so. I think that's the story. I don't like. Remember, I told you, Craig, I don't really know the story with the Secret Service gimmick. But I guess there was a certain YouTuber out there, from what I was told, that tried to say I don't know anything about Cyberpunk because I don't know that detail. I was like, no, I played Cyberpunk and ran Cyberpunk without ever fucking knowing about the Secret Service thing. Was it them? Maybe, probably. And that's GURPS, so I don't really get that. I don't know that whole story. I just remember being told that somehow I don't know Cyberpunk because I don't know about that. So I'm like, I don't fucking know, bud. I run the fucking game, dude. I'm in Canada, Nova Scotia. No one ever sat there and said, well, here's what happened in the real world. But like some of the shit I'll know. Like I know slight, even most of the stuff when I was doing my the AD&D 1E stream, I was doing my research. I found out more about the clash between Dave and Gary at that point. Like it'd be like, well, Steven, you like what, you're old school, you didn't know about that. Like, see, here's where I'm real old school era. If you go right back in the real old school era, almost nobody talked about Gary Gygax. Almost nobody talked about Dave Arneson. That the names and the conversations around them became more popular with the internet. So that's just guys that weren't real old school that just assumed we talked about that stuff back then. But if you're real old school, there was no internet back. It wasn't like the computer world like it is now. So it's no insult to the memories of Dave and Gary, but we talked about the games. If you said Gary Gygax, there was a lot of people that wouldn't even know who the fuck that was. Or they'd be like, oh, you mean the guy in the book? Yeah, the guy in the book. I much prefer this straight fantasy. Jack Van's Dying Earth and Sterling Lanier's Hero's Journey are both fantastic sci-fis like this. I was hoping you would, because it is like, it's a space game in that way. So I thought this might appeal to you. It's definitely challenging, but if you're willing to put the work in, man, once you have see, this is what I loved about it. Once you get the feel down and you do every little gritty thing, you can get addicted. See, that's the thing. I said this earlier, when you love this game, you love it. You'll love it. You'll get addicted, because then you want a repeat of that experience. If you're not willing to do that, or you find that challenging, you'll run away from it. It's just more challenging to players. See, as a game master, Skyrealms Jorune is typical. I mean, I'm sorry, game masters never really got scared of that game. Not old school game masters, not guys who were used to this stuff. I liked it. But it was the player base that had some issues with this game. Steve Jackson and Stephen Sullivan fudged Desire. Both ended up in court after SS raids. I always wonder what that's about. Like, were they just, it's like, I wonder if they thought you guys know too much about certain things. Like, is that it? Like, they know too much about government plans or future stuff? I mean, you hear about the stuff we talked about, like with certain directors and writers, where they be visited by the FBI or the CIA. Like, how do you either know this stuff or how you figured it out? It's weird. Like, if you go back to Cyberpunk, the guy who made Cyberpunk, if you look at the world today, his predictions match a lot of shit we see. But where do you get that from? Real world study? Who was he talking to? So, I mean, is it connected to that? Were people using the games for weird reasons? And was this just an early misunderstanding of the government? Because the government is not as wise as we like to think, right? We'll put stuff out in the private world, and it's weird. It's like nuke information. There's nuke conversations about nukes. I don't want to say anything that gets too crazy on YouTube, but I think I can say this because we're talking about games, where private citizens will know more than your government. And it really depends on who's talking to your leader. Decisions that get made. And it's that simple. I know it's sad to find that out. You think everything is way more organized, but it's who's sitting at the table talking to your leader. Because who's ever sitting at the table has influence, right? And they have influence more than guys that will know more than them. So the guys leaders bring around them that simply people in the private industry or private world, like they just know more, right? They know more. And if your leader knew what they knew, the decisions be different. The popularity of the Anarchist Cookbook probably created a bit of a paranoia amongst security services. Yeah, because you're like, what if the game is teaching people to be anti-government? It sort of is, but it's not really. It's anti-government in the game. But in a way, what are you trying to, and that could be it too. What if it is the government believing, what are you trying to brainwash young people into turning on the government? And you get a visit from Secret Service. That could make sense, right? That they think you're actually trying to do that on purpose for the game. Like it's almost like a version of the Satanic Panic. You get it? It's people overreacting to a fantasy game. But the fantasy guys, let's be real, they take these things far. Like really, really far. Like when they're going to paint it out, you're just like, yeah, man, we can go get the government. It's like, yeah, let's do that. And then you're like, the government's going like, are you trying to brainwash people into like fucking turning on us and doing this shit? Well, no, that's not the intention. But what if? And there's some strange people in the old school that I can say, what if? And I don't know what if? And I don't want to assume nothing was going on. There's some crazy shit that went on. And guys would know so much about the future that you'd be like, wait, I get that he's doing that, but how does he know that? How does he know that? You're not just going to assume all that. That's insider information. So there is some guys that made games back then where you're just like, what's up with that? What's up with that, right? What's up with that? Cyberpunk might be one of those what's up with that games. But did I personally it's like, okay, fair enough, I didn't know about that, but that doesn't mean I didn't run the game the way the designer won it and did that. Like that part I did. Jesus Christ. To try to cut down my experience with Cyberpunk. Oh, he's lying. He didn't fucking run Cyberpunk. What, because I didn't know about the Secret Service visiting the guys? Well, I'm sorry, I'm in Nova Scotia, Canada, and the news wasn't given back to me in the 90s. And I wasn't in the old school era, like at the internet start of the age where these conversations open up more and you know more about this stuff. By the time I get to the internet, I'm doing D&D and other games. Like I didn't do the internet world Cyberpunk play or go into the discussions. I would go on Dragon's Foot Forum. It wasn't like you go on Dragon's Foot Forum and you're there, they're talking about Cyberpunk and Secret Service. And Open RPG was mostly just D&D. That's another place I played the game. Merc, well, if you're in the D&D section, in some other sections, fine, but I played some Traveler. I didn't do Cyberpunk on the internet. I did Cyberpunk in person. But somehow, I guess, if you don't know about the Secret Service, I guess there's a YouTuber out there who says, if you talk about Cyberpunk and you don't know about the Secret Service gimmick, you are lying. Sure, I get whatever floats your boat, dude, as they'd say. All right, character creation for Skyrealms, a Jorune. Character creation is deeply tied to the setting, because the setting is tied to everything. Jorune character creation is heavily connected to species, culture, geography, social role, survival ability, regional identity. The game expects characters to feel like actual people living inside the world rather than generic wandering adventurers. That makes early character decisions matter a lot. It's just players. This is why players get intimidated by this game, not just by the linguistics, but the game really does spell out pretty well that there's an expectation that you really played a certain way. So your performance as a player starts being expected to be up here, where some games you can sort of get away with down here, and the GM is mostly up here, making the game feel a certain way. Nope, this one is the game master and players work together to create this extreme experience. Species choice changes gameplay significantly, very much so. One of the biggest decisions in Jorune, what species you play. And species are not just different stats. Different species may have very different social standing, communication styles. Like imagine telling a player, yeah, you can't just talk normal with that guy. What do you mean? It explains how you're meant to talk with that species. I got to do that? Well, yeah. Yeah. Environmental strengths. So some environments can be really bad for some species. Some can be really good. Some can be just less effective overall, but that becomes important. So you got to read about the species to understand that. Physical abilities would be different. Cultural expectations, political relationships. If you're a certain species, guess what? You don't want to go over there. Why? They'll string you up and kill you. Or maybe it's good to know that you go over there. Those guys will welcome you with open arms because they like your species. Choosing a species can directly affect how NPCs treat you, where you fit in socially, what jobs come naturally, what regions feel dangerous or comfortable. This gives species choice much more impact than many RPGs. This guy just put so much detail and lore. That's why I say you don't want to lore dump to death on your players. If not, you'll destroy them. Some species are easier to play than others. So this is important for new players. Some species are easier to understand because they behave closer to human expectations. So there are some species that are meant to definitely give you a little bit more ease of play. You can play this one if you don't want to play the more difficult ones. If you're a new player, you should be trying these. That's what I would say. And they're meant to be there for that sake. If you're experienced, then you could jump to the others, new players. All right. Others may require players to think very differently socially and culturally. A few species concepts can become difficult if the player does not understand the setting well. So this is why I say the first time you want to play the easier ones, because the idea is you don't take a lore dump, you learn the game through the experience of playing the game. So you run into lore as you're playing. It means if you're a new player, you want to take one of these more human types, learn, and then you come back and play a species where if you don't understand the setting well, it's going to be hard to play them properly. Treats every species like human personality with makeup. So does not understand and treats every species like human personality with makeup. You don't want to do that. Ignores cultural behavior entirely. No. Jorune works best when species differences actually affect role play and decision making. Again, I've already drilled. I'm not going to keep preaching why this stuff is really important. You guys know it's about feel and experience. Leave it at that. Game supports many different character types. Jorune supports far more than fighter, wizard, thief. Interesting character concepts include caravan guard, wilderness guides, political negotiators, issue mystics. These are the guys that can use energy and magic, or traders, because trade's a huge part of the game, or beast handlers, has to do with wildlife, explorers, regional scholars, scouts, diplomats, survivalists, cultural intermediaries, hunters, technology scavengers. A lot of these roles become genuinely useful during campaigns. Because remember, combat's not the biggest focus of this game. So all these other areas become important. That means these characters become important to dealing with those things. Skills help define characters more than raw attributes. Attributes matter, but characters become heavily defined by learned skills, professions, survival ability, social knowledge, regional expertise. A skilled wilderness guide or negotiator or even scholar can become extremely valuable even without dominating combat. The system rewards practical specialization. Starting characters usually feel competent in their area. Jorune characters often begin play already capable within their chosen role. A starting guide, negotiator, hunter, scholar, survivalist can already contribute meaningfully early in the campaign. This helps reinforce character identity quickly, like who they are based on role outside of just personality. Issue users can feel extremely different. Characters connected strongly to issue can become some of the setting's most unusual figures. As I said earlier, it's a mix of like environmental energy, emotional energy, but is almost considered like magic in that way. It's going to let you play with magic in this one. Depending on the culture and training, issue users may be viewed as respected specialists, spiritual figures, mysterious outsiders, scholars of hidden forces, and mechanically, socially, issue can shape how characters solve problems and how societies react to them. Wilderness and travel skills matter a lot. Travel in Jorune can be dangerous, isolated, and unpredictable. As I drilled on, the game master has to focus on that too. So do players when you're making characters. These skills are vital. Characters skilled in navigation, survival, environmental awareness, local terrain, animal handling, travel routes often become critical to the group because of how often you're dealing with this stuff. A wilderness specialist in Jorune can feel just as valuable as a combat character because you'll deal with this more than you'll deal with direct combat. Trade and knowledge characters are actually powerful. One thing that makes Jorune different from many RPGs, knowledge can become a major advantage. Characters skilled in trade, languages, ecology, politics, regional customs, history, negotiations may avoid conflicts entirely. Or secure safe passages, or recognize dangerous situations early, gain allies, access restricted areas, create profitable opportunities. The setting rewards understanding how the world functions. So on your first go, learning is your job. You want to learn with that first character, adjust. Hopefully, you're playing with people that already know, but if you're all learning together, go in with characters that are more human like and learn. Just learn, learn, learn. Combat characters still do matter in this game. Jorune is not a peaceful setting. The world includes dangerous wildlife, territorial disputes, banditry, political violence, environmental threats, species conflicts. Combat-oriented characters can become caravan protectors, hunters, mercenaries, regional defenders, survival-focused warriors. But combat alone rarely solves every problem. It's talking, negotiating. I mean, it's a group thing. So combat can be very important, but have one player focus on the combat, have other players focus on the thing. That's what makes it's a group oriented game here. It's not about the individual characters, right? It's just group focused. Some character concepts can be difficult to play. This is important for players to understand early. Sort of new players. Certain concepts may struggle heavily depending on the campaign. Isolated scholars, socially distrusted outsiders, fragile intellectual characters, travelers without survival skills, politically controversial figures. So just understand when you put a difficulty on your character, it's really difficult. So you might not be too concerned. I mean, you could do that when you're more experienced, but when you're not that experienced, you can still make a very credible character without quirks. The world has just social quirks going on in the world. Like that will take care of things for you. Don't worry about it. The Jorune world can be harsh, and some characters may rely heavily on allies to survive. You can do that to make up for certain things. That can actually create interesting group dynamics if players understand it going in. Again, this is where you want to get that first run, play more simple, learn. So on these further runs, the vast amount of difficulties in this game don't overwhelm you right away. It doesn't mean you can't do them, and they are interesting, but you'd rather have experience so you can actually have a good experience with the difficulties and the interesting that comes with them, right? Advancement usually feels slower and more grounded than powerful fantasy RPGs. Characters generally grow through experience, knowledge, survival, regional familiarity, skill improvement rather than massive explosive power growth. Jorune characters often feel more seasoned, knowledgeable, connected, adaptable over time instead of becoming unstoppable heroes. So it's a gradual build, and you're not going to be building like extremely powerful characters, nor does the game give you a bunch of combat, so that in that way it's not necessary. Like your characters are already credible, even in the combat area. If you have a combat character, they are. There's not like big level gaps, right? And there's a sort of lack of balance in the world to a degree. It's balanced, but it's like you got to figure out where you should go and where you shouldn't go. Basically, you can make the world function for you in a balanced way, but in certain areas there'll be danger, and if you carelessly go in there, it just doesn't care where you're at. It just doesn't care to be balanced, but you can balance it yourself with knowledge, right? That's why the knowledge is so important. Experience. Backgrounds create adventure hooks naturally. Strong backgrounds help the GM generate stories. Remember, it's about pressures, not about pre-made plots. You go in, you let the pressures happen, you take backgrounds, use all this stuff. That's why backgrounds in D&D, the more you run modules, the less backgrounds are important. But once you understand in old school D&D how survival works, and most of the characters can survive because you run it right, you run how the designers intend. Once you understand how the designers intend and players play it in a way that survives more, and you say you did proper gaming with sandboxing and pressures instead of modules, it would just change your whole thing, because you'd realize plots will develop as you go forward based on what the players want to interact with. But strong backgrounds help the GM generate stories. Useful background elements include trade connections. So, you want to have backgrounds that connect with what the game is, what the whole thing is. So trade connections, species rivalries, political obligations, debts, enemies, and the setting and all that will give you all this stuff. So making backgrounds are easy. So enemies, family alliances, regional conflicts, travel experience, ties to important groups. Group composition, well, first off, group matters, not individuals. Group composition matters a lot. Jorune groups often work best when the players cover very different areas of expertise, which is what I've been already pointing out. A strong group may include wilderness expert, negotiator, issue specialist, somebody who can use that magic and energy, protector, scholar, trader, regional guide. Travel is very important. This allows the party to interact with more parts of the world effectively. So you want that lineup. You want that lineup. Really important. One common mistake new players make. A lot of new players build a standard fantasy adventurer. That can create characters who feel disconnected from the setting. Jorune characters usually become more interesting when the player thinks about survival, travel, trade, so important, diplomacy, regional identity, ecology, species relationships, instead of focusing entirely on combat ability, equipment, damage output. Just tell the new player, this is not a video game, dude. Now, it doesn't mean the game can't handle you playing that, making that character, but you'll lose out on some feel, the experience, and everything else in the process. The game isn't broken. It can handle it. It's just what you want from the game, right? Setting. Skyrealms of Jorune setting. Jorune feels like a world instead of a stage. One of the first things people notice about Jorune, the setting feels like it exists independently from the players. Like you could write a novel off this thing. It's so important that the characters are almost secondary to the world itself. The world is the main character. Civilizations have trade systems, regional conflicts, migration patterns, political structures, religious beliefs, environmental pressures, cultural traditions. The world does not feel like towns placed around an adventuring map. It feels more like an active civilization spread across a dangerous planet. The planet itself is one of the main attractions. Jorune is not just a backdrop for adventures. The world itself is one of the game's biggest draws. The setting includes floating islands, strange ecosystems, unusual wildlife, dangerous terrain, isolated regions, ancient ruins, bioengineered remnants, mysterious environmental forces. Traveling through the world often feels like exploration instead of a routine movement between quests. Again, that's if the game master is taking that advice I gave earlier to the how to run it. This is where you make that a thing for the players to experience if you do that stuff. Human civilization exists beside older cultures. One major difference between Jorune and many fantasy RPGs, humans are not simply the unquestioned rulers of the setting. Human society exists alongside older species, ancient traditions, unfamiliar social systems, cultures humans do not fully understand. That creates a setting where cooperation, trade, and even tension and misunderstanding constantly shape the world and your experience with it. The setting blends primitive and advanced elements. Sounds something like the Pedal Throne stuff, right? But it actually does it a lot better, to be honest. So Jorune mixes tribal societies, lost technology, advanced remnants, survival travel, energy manipulation. That's the issue stuff. Post-collapse civilization. This creates a world where primitive settlements and advanced technology can exist surprisingly close together. A caravan route may pass ancient ruins, floating structures, dangerous wilderness, isolated villages, remnants of a forgotten science. That blend gives Jorune a very distinct atmosphere. Again, if the game master is making sure you're going by this stuff, they really implant it in, you start feeling this sort of weird world thing, right? It's not just something I show you in art and feels generic. It's something you'll feel when you go to play the game. Issue is one of the setting's core forces. Issue flows, ISHO, flows throughout the world and affects many parts of the setting. Different groups interpret it differently. Mystical force, environmental energy, spiritual power, natural phenomenon. Issue influences religion, social status, abilities, cultural beliefs, political influence, has political influence. It is deeply tied into the identity of the world rather than feeling like standard fantasy magic. The setting is heavy regional. The setting is heavily regional. Sorry. Different regions of Jorune can feel radically different from one another. Areas may vary in species populations, environmental dangers, politics, trade importance, architecture, customs, available technology, attitudes towards outsiders. Traveling between regions often feels like entering entirely different societies. That regional variation helps the world feel massive. This all sounds great as long as the game master is doing it. Right? So now you start seeing why my advice earlier becomes valuable to the setting because it sounds amazing. And it's, again, what kind of advice am I going to give a game master? Well, you only got to roll a d20 and you roll under a number. That's for most of the game. That's not advice. Advice is about making sure this stuff becomes real and comes to light because the setting sounds beautiful, but it sounds that the game master has to make it this thing. Trade is extremely important to the world, as I've been drilling. Trade routes help connect isolated settlements and cultures. This becomes important because travel is difficult, terrain is dangerous, and regions often depend on one another for survival and resources. Trade creates alliances, political pressure, conflict, diplomacy, smuggling, economic influence. A lot of adventures can emerge naturally from trade activity alone. So having a character that really focuses on this, it's so important you'll do this more than combat, for example. Like making money and doing trade business is an extremely important part of the game. It can get you in dangerous spots. And well, actually, if you're going to get more combat at all, doing trade will lead you to more conflict for sure. The wilderness can be genuinely dangerous. Large parts of Jorune feel untamed and difficult to control. The setting includes dangerous creatures, environmental hazards like chemicals and that ruins, isolated regions, unstable travel conditions, difficult terrain. This gives travel weight. Leaving civilization can feel risky rather than routine. That danger helps reinforce the scale of the world. It does. Ancient ruins and lost knowledge matter a lot. The world contains remnants of older civilizations and forgotten technology. These ruins may contain dangerous artifacts. So you can go like relic hunting, if you get what I'm saying. Lost knowledge, like ancient like books of some other language you've never seen before. Environmental hazards, as we went over. Ancient systems, abandoned structures, very unique stuff. Clues about past civilizations. This creates a setting where exploration can uncover things far older and stranger than modern societies fully understand. And it's built in. Trust me, the guy's done so much work. There is stuff. Species relationships shape the world. Different species in Jorune often have competing interests, cultural misunderstandings, political rivalries, economic dependencies, territorial tensions. Jorune literally sounds a bit like Edge Rice Burroughs some of the stories where I know who, I'm not good at the name, but I don't know who that is. The stories were on Mars and mixed with humanoids and alien types. I wonder what year that was, Craig, because I know this was inspired, but I wonder if this inspired some other things, because I wouldn't be surprised if stuff like that was either the inspiration for this or the other way around, right? Could be the other way around. This is 1986. So if you want to check out if you can check out the year, remember the year, that'd be interesting. Okay, so these relationships can help create ongoing conflict without requiring pure good versus evil, because it's species conflict. So you don't need this good versus evil thing. Tension will be created through that. So a lot of tension in Jorune comes from competing needs and incompatible perspectives rather than simple villainy. Like misunderstandings can lead to a war where neither side is exactly evil. They're just it's a misunderstanding and conflict that's going to happen because some are aggressive. Well, fuck. Then it is probably influenced this. I wouldn't doubt that at all, right? Because what would happen in most TTRPGs, you won't say, "Yeah, I'm copying this or doing Mars." You'll go into it and you might even advance what you've gotten into. That's what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a bit more advanced than that, but not because it's better, but that might inspire guys like this that are making this, and then they want to do more with it. Because war gamers and people like that, it's not just simple, like they have fucking whole fucking things they write after a fucking war. And trust me, I've seen it now. Like when I first met war gamers, you go in, you'd be like, see them do a war or a campaign with Warhammer after so many wars. And you got to see what they wrote. And they have like fucking 30 or 40 pages of just fucking, written top to bottom pages on either side. I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's all about your war? Yeah. The setting supports many different types of stories. Jorune can support exploration stories, trade campaigns, political intrigue, survival journeys, frontier settlement stories, diplomacy-heavy campaigns, wilderness expeditions, technology recovery missions. The setting is flexible enough to support both small region stories and large civilization-scale conflicts. Technology feels strange instead of familiar. The advanced elements of Jorune often feel mysterious rather than comfortable or fully understood. I'm not surprised at all because there's so much that inspires everything else. That's why a lot of these early games I cover inspire a lot of the later games where we hear weird things. But I'm not surprised to hear that they're inspired by this. And I rather inspiration than that's why I don't like the new, say, Hollywood. Hollywood is remake, 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 remake. Look, I have no problem with something inspired. That brings new ideas and different takes on the same tropes, and that's why I don't mind tropes. I have no issue with tropes. I'd rather a trope than a remake. I'm fucking dead serious. I'd rather a trope with your own ideas than I remade this. Yeah, the John Carter thing, definitely. Definitely. It makes sense as soon as you say it. Technology may appear partially broken, culturally misunderstood, dangerous, merged with environmental systems, treated almost spiritually by some groups. This helps preserve the setting's atmosphere, uncertainty, and discovery. Isolation helps define the world. Many settlements feel isolated because of dangerous terrain, difficult travel, environmental threats, regional hostility, limited communication. This isolation helps cultures develop independently from one another. And this is why you get these differences, these vast differences in some cases. It also makes travel and outside contact feel important, because it is, to make contact with these groups that are like basically sometimes disconnected from some of the outer trade, right? Politics in Jorune often feel local and practical. A lot of political tension in Jorune revolves around trade access. It really does, because trade's so important. Territory, resources, migration, alliances, survival needs, environmental pressure. This helps the setting feel grounded despite its surreal elements. Conflicts often emerge naturally from groups trying to survive and maintain stability. The setting works because everything feels connected. One of Jorune's greatest strengths, the world's system often feels interconnected. Environments affect trade, trade affects politics, politics affects species relationships, travel affects survival, ancient ruins affect modern societies. The setting often feels less disconnected. Adventurers adventure zones, less disconnected adventure zones, and more like a functioning world with layered pressure constantly interacting with one another. The next part is just some worth mentioning stuff, but I'll take a little break before I get to that part. Okay. The John Carter thing definitely makes sense, Craig. But I do like this type of sci-fi. I really do. I like it. It's crazy good. Gary Gygax and Brian Bloom wrote unlicensed sci-fi war games, Warriors of Mars, based on the same books, got into legal difficulty, so the games with withdrawn. That's probably why guys like this were inspired by it, but ended up just being inspired to make their own thing. That's why I hate too many repeats of something, too many copycats of something, remakes, or you take someone's idea and you don't do much with it because you're just trying to present their idea with something just layered in. It's like, no, dude, bring your own uniqueness, but there's nothing wrong with taking the ideas and creating something unique with them. Right? That is totally good. Tropes are totally good as long as you are bringing something unique to it. Like saving the princess, Shrek. The first Shrek movie, completely fine. Thought the trope was fucking used beautifully. It's a comedy, but it's taking a trope and going, just here's something different with it. Cool. Trope is completely fine when used in creative ways. It's when storytelling lacks creativity that I get bored. Or a game tries to copy exactly something old too much, where any creativity from the people designing it might only be in the rules of the game. Very boring. Yeah, get in trouble. I don't give a fuck. That's boring. You've just taken someone else's ideas. You either you try to tell a story that's so similar that there's almost no creativity, or you make a game that's so similar there's no creativity. Skyrealms and Jorune might have been inspired by the same thing, but look at the fucking creativity. It's a guy who gets it, but then takes his own thing and says, I'm going to be creative with it. That's great. And it really is unique, but you got to have players that buy into, like, what about travel and going over to figure out trade? Are you into that? Or would you rather be fighting most of the game? Like, you have to enjoy this stuff. What about negotiating with two groups to bring peace? Like, say, we talked about Bushido. Are you interested in doing the social interaction, talking to the aliens, finding out what they're about? Are you fucking into that? Because if that's like, and then you have to have a game master that understands the lore and presents each one of these places, each one of these species in the way they are. Then the GM has to have, when you're traveling, the herd travel, the village is over here, the wildlife interfering. So then the game master has to perform. It's not just this stuff is automatically there. He has to put it in. He has to make that work. So the advice where I'm telling people what they do with this stuff, the game master, that's where I say it's so important, because the game isn't about just fighting. So giving you a bunch of mechanics probably isn't the best only bit of advice I can give you. It's the advice to tell you, focus on this, focus on trade, focus on culture, because that's what makes the game. The white at Magado in the original Star Trek was borrowed from Basrooms too. See, I this is where I love Star Trek, some of the older stuff. I love that it was episodic, so you wouldn't have to like the entire, like you didn't have to watch every Kirk thing to just enjoy Star Trek. But I liked they did it right. They have their own twist on stuff because they already have their own setting and ideas, and they're taking something, and even them guys are showing you we don't copy. It's not a complete copycat of the thing. It's a hint, idea, trope, and then they layer stuff on top of it, their own creative ideas, right? Their own creative ideas. Now there's some exceptions, but even your own creative ideas have to be layered on that. Like I like Next Generation. I don't care what people say. I like them dealing with the Sherlock Holmes stuff, but they do it their own way. It's on the starship in the fucking thing. Now I know there's some contradictions in there because people say, "Why didn't you just do this?" or "Why didn't this happen?" Yeah, okay, I don't care. I'm more worried about a good story. So when the nerds get too technical on me and find little bumps in Star Trek, go, "That sucks." I'm like, well, wait. Are you telling me the story told it sucks? If they tell me yes, I'll be like, well, then you have no fucking taste. You have no fucking taste. Mistakes are constant in stories. Is the story good or not? And if its story's not good, then the fucking mistakes will be big. Like in Star Wars, because the new Disney Star Wars were so fucking awful. There's one part where they have one of the spaceships speed up, and it goes speeding up and it blows into something like a missile. And they're like, okay, why wasn't people in Star Trek doing that forever? Why weren't terrorists doing that? Right? But it's easier to pick it apart because the storytelling sucks. Oh, no, that I agree with. But at least, regardless, at the end of the day, you still got a bunch of people around them, and they want to produce something unique. Like they take the trope, but they put their own thing on it. And where they do a bit of copy stuff, they get permission. So the Sherlock Holmes stuff, they got permission, but I was like, I still like that they put their own fucking creativity into it. Do you get it? Like it wasn't just we're stealing Sherlock Holmes. It was like we're going to borrow it, but man, we're going to do something unique with it, and our storytelling with it is going to be something different and good. Because there's very few. Like if it wasn't for the original stuff, outside of the original stuff for Sherlock Holmes, most of it sucks. And when I seen the Star Trek stuff, I was like, man, this is probably some of the best stuff outside of the original shit. Unfair, you had to draw Star Wars cards. Can never go wrong with that one. I don't know if I have any of the convenient card that I have. Check something, guys. Checking something. Well, no, but that's just that card. Sorry if I make some noise here. I'm just checking something. I get so many old things. Here's like an old card. Hulk and Spider Smash. But I get some very unique things. Just give me a moment here. I'm being nosy. Because I keep some stuff handy. Sometimes it's where I want it to be. Sometimes it's not. Probably just made a bunch of noise for not too many good reasons. Oh, sadly, no. Oh, well. I have some art, some good art that you'd be surprised that I drew. I'll have to dig it up one of these days and show it to you. I swear, I was hoping to be here. but I know where it's packed away. Right, I get lots of things packed away. What I meant was, since Disney Star Wars was so bad, and it was, it's never wrong to compare that to other bad examples. Cool cards, though. Where's that from? Probably something to do with Upper Deck, but it is like Spider-Man versus Hulk. It's just I do. I get some old art that I'd love to pull out and show you. I have to find that because you guys will be surprised. I just haven't done art in years, and I have a hard time with my vision. Which is not completely gone or anything. It's just, it's my vision is changing. When they say, it's like, I'm not going blind, but I do. It's like I have to hold the book a little further away to read some stuff. That is a bit of vision loss, right? But it's not that rapidly going. I already had it checked out. I should get glasses, but I've been delaying the whole thing. But yeah, when it's bad, with Star Trek, it was different. They got criticized for some of the stuff with Moriarty. And I'm like, look, nerds, you can pick that apart, but if you're going to tell me that sucks, it just tells me you have no taste in good storytelling. Because the storytelling for the Star Trek episodes was fucking excellent. But if you go pick it apart like a nerd would, I'm like, yeah, but does that have anything to do with a good story being told? No, then please shut the fuck up. So to me, that's really important. Star Trek was really good at certain storytelling, though where it drops off is Voyager. So I'll be honest about that. I don't know what happened with Voyager. I know some of the writers crossed over from Star Trek and that, but I was like, no, I don't like this stuff. And I'm not saying Voyager was all that bad. It was better than some of the stuff that later came. Sadly, I didn't like any Star Trek beyond that. I like some characters. I know it was the Enterprise one with one of the newer ones, which was considered good. That guy in it still wasn't a big fan. Just overall for most of the episodes, right? I like 3 of them. I like Captain Kirk. Not every episode, I'll be honest with you. That might frequently piss off some nerds. I love The Next Generation. Can't deny that. But my favorite, as you guys know, is Deep Space Nine because it's me connecting it so much to, if I ever wanted to make a Star Trek tabletop role-playing game, it's DS9. I like to tell nerds original Star Trek crews were all male. That's so true. There's yeah, I know. I know it's risking my life here, but I've never seen any Star Trek, not by choice. Life has just had other. Who are you? Where's Black Rose? That can't be Black Rose. I've never seen any Star Trek. All right, just show me the rock you lived under. That's what I want to be introduced. Where was the rock? How long did you live under it? Even the ones wearing a dress, which, oh man, Craig, this is one of those things where I think we talked to a Goss the other day and we went into that history and I went, there's a certain point where I stopped. There's a weird background to Hollywood. And everybody has connections to it. But I know what you mean. I do know what you mean about the lack of women. Women became a later gimmick in it. And they were so background. I just felt like when they connected to the show, I'm just like, you didn't really need them. It's called Norway. It can't be Norway. I know people in Norway that watched it. I believe you, though, all rock and see. But really, man, really, really, a nerd that plays second edition AD&D. I know, I get it. It's a risking the life thing. That's right. It's so hard to think you didn't watch the next generation or DS9. Like, well, look, dude, if you ever bother, my suggestion right away is going to be Deep Space Nine, but in a way that be cheating you because there's so much connected from Star Trek to Next Generation to DS9 that and Next Generation it lacks a connection with Captain Kirk. So if you're going to watch any Star Trek, the Next Generation in DS9. And because to understand some of the DS9 stuff, you got to watch the Next Generation. Not everything, but there's enough in there that you should watch it. Enough that those two would be watched. If you wanted to skip Captain Kirk, go ahead. If you want to skip everything after DS9, go ahead. But if you ever said, I need a show to watch, and you're a nerd, and you want to watch something, and you go, well, fuck it, I'm going to try some Star Trek. My advice would be start with the Next Generation, go through that series, and then go into DS9. And DS9, the way it finishes, you can ignore everything pretty much after that. Because everything after that doesn't have a deep connection. But those two are connected. Like how DS9 starts, Next Generation is still going. And certain characters literally cross over, like full time on both shows, like a character named Morph. So it's actually, I'd almost count them as a way of being so connected that, yeah, it's all one. But very noted, if you ever want to sit down and give into it and watch some of it, you can skip Kirk. And if you watch those two series, you can skip everything after them and the Kirk before. That's it. Don't bother with the fucking movies. Don't watch movies of Star Trek and go, that's Star Trek. Put the fucking movies down. Don't touch the movies. Fucking Star Trek movies are like fucking anime movies. Right? You ever watch a great anime series? Now, Craig will understand what I'm saying here. You're watching a great anime series and like they got a movie out for it and you go watch and you're like, yeah, okay, sure. If I ever suggest an anime, I would assume, I know Craig's an anime guy too. He would probably get what I'm saying here. With movies, you can skip almost pretty much every anime movie there is. Now, other than unique anime movies that don't have a series to them, they can be unique. That's different. That's way different. But anime movies connected to anime series, skip. Yeah, they suck. They suck. They so suck. There's a slow storytelling and an episodic storytelling. And remember, the episodes minus commercials are more like 40 to 50 minutes. You don't get to sit there and watch for hours. You can take in an episode, bang. And if you feel like two, you can get two in less than a 2-hour movie. So it's a lot easier taking the show in. And the show is long storytelling, so it's always more interesting. They just get to take their time and tell the story. Same thing with anime, though. I would say that's true. Take their time and tell a story. Movies are rapid pace, so when I go to watch a movie, I don't want it to be connected to a show because I have an expectation of the show and the slow storytelling. I like that. Though if it's a unique movie, even animes, some of them are really good as long as they're not connected to a fucking show. Okay, last part, because the mentioning part is really short here. There's only so much to say. Worth mentioning, trade can become actual gameplay. This is important. I talked about trade, but I want to put a little drill on it here. In a lot of RPGs, trade is mostly background flavor, and Jorune trade can become survival. The UK Star Trek was shown on BBC, so no adverts. Oh, that's cheating. That's cheating. That's a beautiful thing, though. Lucky fucking you. Lucky fucking you. Oh, and you want to know what I'll say this about the UK? The UK produced some of the best nerd stuff. I just, it took me years to realize just how good their shit was. Not Star Trek, but I mean, watch it. Like tabletop role-playing games and comic books. Like I've always known about Western comic books. It was, I forget, it was like 2006 when somebody said, the UK does some good comic books. Because I was reading my Transformers. And they're like, Steven, have you read like UK Transformers? UK Transformers? What the fuck are you talking about? You don't know that the UK has a bunch of their own comic lines, and they have Marvels that are there, but and Transformers and everything, and they do their own stories. It's like, they fucking do? What the fuck? Really, really good stuff. It's a joy of socialism. It's a bad word, dude. I don't want to say that. I should not have repeated that word. Now, you say it in chat. I'll say it in chat all day. I got to watch when I say it. I got to watch when I say it. It's YouTube. And that's not a complaint. I want you to be able to say that shit all you fucking want all day in chat. It's and don't ever worry like, oh, you're not going to protect me. You say whatever the fuck you want. Star Blazers and Judge Dredd. Yeah, well, that's exactly it. UK is wildly good. I started reading their Transformers and went, holy fuck, this is better than the Western stuff. What the fuck? Now, they have a bit of a less polished look sometimes, but that never bothered me. I like gritty and authentic. It's completely fine. The storytelling is fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. For real. So, okay, Jorune trade can become survival, diplomacy, politics, travel motivation, regional conflict, caravans, trade routes, resource access, and safe passages can all become major parts of the campaigns. A merchant group crossing dangerous territory may honestly feel as important as a military expedition. Only a few more parts here. The game rewards paying attention. Well, if the game master's running it well, then it really does. Jorune is one of those RPGs for players who listen carefully, learn cultures, study environments, remember regional tensions, pay attention to customs, often gain major advantages because they can play to the stuff, learn about it. The setting rewards engagement with the world more than simple optimization. Some players give up hard on this game. Even many old school RPG fans admit Jorune can be difficult to get into. The biggest reasons usually includes terminology overload. You swear you're speaking a different fucking language. There's that many unique words. Dense lore. It's one thing you think you're learning about so much lore as a player. I got to tell you, it can take you 2 good campaigns to learn most of what you need to know. Unfamiliar species. They're great when you adjust to them, but that can take a while. Unusual setting assumptions. Unusual. Slower pacing on purpose. So it's not a fast game. This is a take your time, deal with people, talk to people game. And if you're not going to be into that, this game's going to... It's great if you are into it. I hope it sells to you if you are into it. I hope that sounds appealing, that you take your time and deal with things. For a lot of players, it does. For some, that doesn't. Some people absolutely fall in love with that depth. Others mentally check out almost immediately. That split is a huge part of the game's reputation. Jorune never became mainstream, but it stayed memorable. Jorune never reached the popularity level of Dungeons & Dragons, Traveller, Call of Cthulhu, but the people who connected with the setting often remembered it for decades. The game developed a reputation for ambition, originality, depth, atmosphere, world building. Even people who struggled to run it often respected what it attempted to do. There's a lot of people out there that will read a tabletop role-playing game, and the world building part they'll love. The ideas they get from it they'll love. Playing it, they don't love. Playing it, they do not love it all. And I say, here's my problem though. Every time I've talked to people that don't like playing Jorune, and these are people I think would actually give the effort in, and they'll say they don't like playing it. I'm like, yeah, most likely you ran into the issue of having a bad game master. That's the issue for a lot of guys. Bad game master. The game feels like crap. I'm like it's really challenging, or you don't get the feeling. I'm like, yeah, that's the game master, dude. That's what that is. The game master. So you gotta. It's just a game that requires high performance, like extremely high performance. The game master has to do a lot of work, put things in there, and then represent them properly, understand the lore. So the work on the game master is really hard, but if they do it, it's fucking great. But it's performance too. It's like introducing you to the different species and actually applying the different linguistics, the different terminology, presenting them that way so they have their own feel. If you do that, it feels great, but it's a high performance on your end as a game master and getting more technical with the world. If you don't do that, the game is dry. And most guys that say could play a game like that, but said it wasn't their cup of tea. Usually it's because they read, like when I really examine what happened, I'll be like, oh, that's not the game. That's the game master. Now, don't get it wrong. You can run Jorune well like I do, and some players won't like it, but that's players that don't want to put the work in. I'm not players that want to put the work in. Liked it when I ran it. So I ran it twice and played it once. And I'm lucky I played it the first time because I learned mistakes. Like that was an early lesson of bad lore dumping. The DM is just like, here, read all this. Now he was shocked even when I came back. I was like, okay, I read everything. He's like, you did? I was like, yeah. One other guy did, but he was just had a hard time remembering most of it. But I could tell he went through it. Maybe he skimmed parts, but I mean, I could tell he went through it. He actually knew a lot more than the other players. The other players, you could tell, read almost nothing. They read a bit, stopped. And I got to be honest, it was like one of my first times I ever got into where I noticed lore dump was a big, like I just didn't realize it was bad lore dumping, which I learned later more with, I better perform too with Earthdawn on lore dumping as well. Like not doing it, like bringing people in where it's gradual, bring the player in, but the game master has to learn a lot. Now, the reason I could take the lore dump from him in that game, it wasn't that it was bad for me, but what it did take away from me was what I agreed with an older, wiser game master who taught me. He said, Steven, you had no problem reading the lore dump. It's like, yeah. He said, but I bet you it was less surprising when you were running into stuff. Yeah. He says it probably would have been better for you as a player to not know some of that stuff and learn it in game with your character, right? Yeah, that would have been way better. And so, and remember, old school. The reason he's giving me this wisdom is he's reminding me old school is about feel and experience. So if you're concerned about feel and experience, which you should be if you're old school, well then you don't want to lore dump all at once as a player. You want to be surprised and have it feel unique. Like you got to learn from encountering the thing. But there you go. That's the coverage of Skyrealms of Jorune. Stream's not done. I'm fucking here. I'm good. But that's the coverage of the game. I mean, I hope it was an okay presentation. The how to run an advice was good. The character creation advice was really good. If you actually ever play or run the game, if you go back to those parts, that's really good. And you'll realize if I actually sitting down with the game, then you'll appreciate what I said. You sit down with the game, you'll be like, oh, fuck yeah. He gave examples, so that's really good. It's like even my James Bond one. If you actually sit down with the game and then you go back, you'd be like, oh, shit, that really is good advice. And especially if you don't have the extended books to James Bond, then my advice is really, really good, right? Just saying. Character creation advice is all good. But some of those parts, like the how to run it and character creation, I get like old school games where it's a lot less about mechanic explanation. They can seem boring when I'm telling you, well, you should focus on trade. And it's like, oh, okay, dude, all right. But then you get into the game and you realize, oh, okay, you should focus on trade. Yeah. Of course. Though the story, did you check out the Joe story? I know that Craig did. I don't know if you did Black Rose. Joe the farmer. I don't know. Like I thought that was pretty. I was trying to be creative with that. I thought it was pretty funny because Joe the farmer is pretty much a D&D character, old school D&D character, and here I am, the dungeon master, showing up, and even though he looks like a guy from the medieval world, I show up in my normal fucking clothes you would see today, like a shirt and pants and normal stuff. I'm talking to the guy like, okay, you're gonna have to go into a dungeon. He's like, well, why would I just say a farmer? And then he comes up with the excuse like he sucks as a farmer, and his wife fucking tells him like, we're fucking starving, you gotta get out and make coin. And he's like, oh, okay. And it's like, I'm like, well, dude, where are you gonna find random coin just laying around? A dungeon. He's like, okay, I'll go there. And then he has to go through the whole dungeon thing. And I'm meeting up with him after his whole fucking crew has been killed up again. Like after that opening part, I jump. It's a bit of a story, but it's not doing every possible scene. It's meant just to be sort of a jump around. But I jump to the next part where he's sitting on the ground. His whole fucking party has died, but he's alive, and he has like a backpack full of shit. I'm like, dude, because he's just fucking fucked up from it. He's like, I don't know if I can keep going. I'm like, dude, you just got to get into the dungeon. Let's go. Get up. And he starts questioning me at certain points. Like I set it up that way where even one part he's like, hey, can you help me? And I'm like, no. I hope you actually checked that one out because it was meant to be amusing. It's just it's a serious guy in the setting, so it's what I do it funny. I give a serious setting, but so it turns out there's another great sounding game I missed. Was it a stream? Is it a game I could eventually cover at one point? Vague statements like that, Craig, you got to give a filler. I think you're hinting at something. You're probably even commenting about something. I don't know. That could mean a lot of things. I'll let you throw it down. You throw it down. I'm here for you. But I thought that was entertaining. I got a few likes on that one on the fucking Joe thing because Joe is just it's just a story about a guy. Oh, yeah. It's. I jump to the part where he's in the dungeon. I jump back where I'm talking to him after he's gotten his first bit of training. And I'm telling him like, "Hey, dude, good, you got the training. Got to get out and make more coin." He's like, "Well, should I stop? Did I make enough?" No. You gave some to your family, right? Like, yeah. And then he goes. It's like he's fighting a goblin at one point, and I'm there. Hey, I'm like, yeah, go for it, man. The goblin like looks over at me like, just no, don't bother, creature. Ignore me. Just focus on him. Well, don't. I'm not saying attack him. And I'm doing that sort of sarcastic part where I'm the dungeon master, right? But I've showed up, and at one point he says to me like, "Are you a god?" I'm like, "No, man. They call me the dungeon master." He's like, "Could you help me at times?" No, I can't. I'm just a witness. And then we go back to where he's training and he's upgraded. So it's the idea is it's jumping around where I start with him getting him off the farm into the dungeon, but he barely fights like you should. The barely fight thing early levels. Then he gets his training from getting the gold that he did get from the party dying, but he got it there with his money. So it's the way I explain old school D&D, but I'm taking this guy through the story. Now, after the training, he's more established to do shit, so he goes back and actually fights goblins. He's not just dying outright, or his party's not just getting wiped out type of thing, right? And then we go back to where he's trained even more, but now he's at the higher level. So he was capable, now he's at a higher level. Like, now you can go help people. You're capable of helping people. There'll be a lot of money in it. And he's like, he feels more confident because he has survived at this point, got all this training. And he feels he can possibly, he's gone from nervous to maybe I could do something. And I'm like, well, they have a dragon attacking this village. You should go fight the dragon, be a hero. You're capable now. You're not just a farmer anymore. He goes up, but at one point, he gets into a fight when he gets there, before he gets there. This time, he kicks ass, right? One of the guys go down, but he kicks ass. And I'm coaching him through, like, you could do it, man. He gets up and he has his magical sword down. He takes down that goblin. He finally gets to the village and he has a moment of considering not going to fight the dragon where he's like, maybe I should take my money and just go home to my family. I'm like, but I tell him, but what about these people? It's not like there's a bunch of people around that can fight the dragon, but you're capable now. And he's like, oh. Okay, I guess I'm capable and there's nobody else. He goes and fights the dragon. His whole party dies again, but they've damaged the dragon. He takes the dragon down. He beats the dragon, almost dies doing it, but he fucking defeated. He's the hero. Saved the people. The Krishna book setting I borrow a lot from Barsum too, so not missed out entirely. I do hope some of the things I talked about are appealing. And what I would say, Craig, just because a lot of people get Skyrealms or Jorune just for the reading. The ideas are awesome. And I know you steal ideas. So you're like me. You don't just steal ideas from a D&D game like stealing initiative. That's boring. Not completely boring, but it's just not that interesting. You like taking really unique ideas. Skyrim and Jorune, given the type of games you like to fucking play and steal ideas for, that thing is, man, if you can get that printed and read it, so try to get it printed. That shit you'd want to dig into if you get a couple good hid nights, right? And you're bored. That's something you dig into when you get the energy to do so, right? And you have the patience to do so on the odd night. That'd be something worth your time to give on those nights where you got that piece, right? If you have some reading, especially if you like, I know you like doing that, so that'd be a good read. Good ideas. Stuff I know, even if you didn't steal directly, the ideas would probably inspire your own ideas for shit, right? Anyway, after the story with the video here is he kills the dragon. He barely survives, says, I don't know how, but I'm like, we're going to get you healed. So it's like, then the next part of the story is we're on the way back. We're on the way back. Oh, I know you could. And I know you like the sci-fi stuff, so I know it's right up your alley. But the last part of the story is he's on his way back and he stops at a shack because it's bad weather. He's going to stay at a shack for the night. On the way home, only a few days away from his family and his kids, ready to retire. He's earned enough coin to take care of his family forever, pretty much. All the adventuring, all the sacrifice the guy has done, he's earned it. What was he supposed to do from the start? He's done. And he's sitting there. He says, Larry, I'm going to sit down. We're in the shack. I'm going to stay here for the night. I'm like, well, you did good, buddy. I'm like, oh, wait, there's a spider. And he looks, and he responds, he's like, oh, the spider's on me. Oh, the spider bit me. Well, that's not good. I'll take the spider off. Oh, wait, I feel a little weird. I feel a little, And then I finish off the part going, well, poor Joe. I like Joe. I like that. Joe was a good guy. Not bad. I'm going to have to go deal with another Joe now, though. I like this Joe, though. Too bad. A couple days away. Pretty close. And that's it. I'll go deal with another Joe. And that's pretty much how that part of the video stops. And then I it goes from the story to me talking just about D&D, right? But what I've done is in a bit of a dark comedy sense. It starts off, it's something light, but it sort of ends off with a bit of a haha in a dark way. But it is saying the story doesn't really matter more than the experience you directly have with the game. A story emerges. Let the story emerge. You're there to play the game. Old school is not about telling a story. It's about having a great experience. It's you in the moment. You in the world. You feeling the thing. It's not about telling a story. A story comes from that thing. The more realistic all the things going on, a great story can come from that thing. But story is secondary to the way it feels to you in the moment. Storytelling is what you do to get something more to the game. Old school, if you were there part of the old school era and really understood it, what you got out of the game was the experience, the feel, not you telling a story. And only a couple games, like I said, back in the day would qualify as storytelling games, where they purposely are trying to tell a story. That's the intent of the actual game, not just your experience. Even though your experience is important, Pendragon, your experience is important, but guess what's equally as important? Storytelling. Castle Falkenstein, your experience is important, but just as important, your experience, your feel, the feel to the game. That's it. And now some people might get insulted by a statement like that, but it's not that it's not true. So I'm sorry if that bothers some people, but the game, the escapism, what you do during that moment is the most important thing. I don't know how that's not the gimmick that people get. I don't get how they don't get that part. When they tell me it's a storytelling game, I'm like, no, these games are storytelling games. Storytelling is a part of what you're doing, but as the story emerges, you worry about experiencing the world and the feel to things. Your experience is what matters. Your time, your moment in the moment, right? And if you don't enjoy in the moment, if you don't enjoy in the moment, that's a thing. And to me, I'm actually communicating something well. Our Compass and Kirsten, which is great gimmick for social interaction and conflict. It definitely is. And it's something that I said, like some of the imagery for the Jorune game has that stuff in it. Right. But I tell guys, like, I don't know why because I'll be like, storytelling is not the big thing. And they'll be like, because people have agendas in the hobby. I'm like, well, dude, actually listen to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is actually not wrong. And you'd enjoy the feel and experience. So your agenda is getting in the way of truth, that if you don't appreciate the truth, you miss out. Why would you want to miss out on that? Why would you not want to feel like you're in the place, in the character, embodying the character, in the world, having these? Why would you want to miss out on that? Why would an agenda of, we're storytellers, be so important to you that you would poison your own mind and take away that from yourself? Because you'll do that. You'll do that by pushing an agenda that's bullshit. It's like, why? Why would you ever do that to yourself? That's poison. That's a poisonous way to think. Because then you will not go after the feel. You won't go after the experience. You'll stay in this fucking hit zone where you got to tell a goddamn story. I'm like, sorry. I apologize. Still learning this shit. I apologize. Right? Forgive me. Learning. But we'll say damn. It pisses me off that guys let an agenda where they started arguing for something that makes no sense. And instead of just having the humbleness to say, as a man, look, I was wrong. Storytelling is not the big thing. Like, you can't be humble enough just to admit storytelling is just a part of what we do. It emerges from the experience. I hate that about guys that aren't really old school and aren't humble. You get a lot of old men in the old school that once they put their foot down on something, that is fucking it. They are scared to say they're wrong. They're terrified of it. And once they say something, that's it, agenda forever. They can't be wrong about anything. I'm like, you're not wrong that there's a storytelling element going on. But the story emerges, the experience and the feel is what's most important. And that's not storytelling. So don't pretend it is. And you'll know this by playing Pendragon. Because you'll notice the separation of your experience and feel is there, but you're also telling a story. Well, if the other part was telling a story, why would those two parts be playing separate from each other? Right? And then you'll realize the second you play Pendragon, what you thought was storytelling, you are not doing. Pendragon does it. Castle Falkenstein does it. And I guarantee what you're doing with every D&D game is not doing it. So once you play actual storytelling games, you realize right away, oh shit, I wasn't playing a storytelling game. It's like, and I have to get after the designers of World of Darkness. Oh, here's a storyteller. The designers are fucking idiots as far as they made a boo-boo. No, dude, you made another Dungeons and Dragons game with vampires. That's what you did. It's storytelling, and Pendragon gets storytelling right. So if you want to say your game is storytelling, it better be like Pendragon. It better be like Castle Falkenstein, because they are actually trying to tell a story. If your game isn't like Pendragon, because Pendragon has the experience and feel separate from trying to tell a story. They're both happening, but you'll notice the difference. If you play World of Darkness, you get the experience and feel, you don't get the storytelling element. There's elements in there, and a story emerges from World of Darkness, for example, but to call the guy running it a storyteller is false. A story emerges. That happens from the randomness and the experience of you embodying a character as a player, being in the game, being in the world, feeling it, experiencing it. A story emerges. That's not storytelling. That's a story emerging naturally from what you're doing. Escapism is you embodying the character and being in the world and feeling it, because that's how you escape the world. Storytelling is what Pendragon does. And if your game isn't doing what Pendragon's doing, you're not playing or running a storytelling game. Fucking period. End of story. How ironic I say it that way, but that's true. Pendragon actually intends to tell a story, and it does it perfectly. World of Darkness doesn't. That's why I got mad at other guys. It was one pissy thing about the designers. You have poisoned the minds of the people taking part in your game. Well, why? Well, because they're there for the experience, embodying the character and being in the setting, right? Okay. And the story emerges from that experience, that escapism, right? Yeah. That's not storytelling. That's a story emerging means it naturally is just a story happening from what you do, not you intending to tell the story. See, storytelling is intention. Pendragon, you intend to tell a story. That's why I call Pendragon a storytelling game. You can't call World of Darkness a story. This is agenda bullshit. People got the storytelling part wrong, and they're not humble enough to realize they were fucking wrong. And why would Pendragon do the storytelling and actually do it right? And then, like, it's the story, like, it's like you're realizing the second you play Pendragon, you realize, oh shit, these other games aren't storytelling games. Burning Wheel is not a storytelling game. World of Darkness is not a storytelling game. None of them are storytelling games. Pendragon and Castle Falkenstein both get storytelling right. That's it, because they are trying intentionally to tell a story. That's what you got to do to be a storytelling game. Intentionally tell a story. If you pretend that you're intentionally telling a story, then you're really not. You'll half-ass the whole thing, and you miss what's important to most games. Most games are embody the character and feel the world, feel the experience. And 5e can't tell a story. You're there playing fighting game. Fucking fuck. And it's just an argument people weren't willing to give up on. I'm like, yeah, fucking nerds. Can't let it go. You're wrong about the storytelling. Absolutely wrong. Not a maybe. Boom. You're fucking wrong. World of Darkness, you embody the character, experience the setting, and the story naturally happens from what you're doing. It's escapism. You're escaping the real world for the experience. That is not storytelling with intention. That just happens. Now, what I say is pure fact. And anybody who honestly listens to what I say, they'll be like, well, how can you say I'm fucking wrong? Unless you just don't want to be wrong and you have a fucking agenda, which is what most guys have. Every guy who disagrees with me, when you dig in, basically he was wrong, just doesn't want to admit it. Has the agenda, has been on this fucking thing forever, doesn't let it go. And what do you have? What else does storytelling do? It lets people, by claiming storytelling about games that aren't storytelling, they get to justify bullshit. Well, if it's storytelling, we don't need character death. Fuck off. Fantasy and sci-fi literature appeals to me because they both create an unconventional setting and explore how humans might respond to it. See, the storytelling itself in a novel, that's great. You're a reader. You'll get this. Pure storytelling is great with it. But when you go to play the game, it's these elements that you could take from the storytelling, and you want to go, like you're reading about the world. So the storyteller wants to take you there, right? But it's the storyteller's actually telling a story. But what's the reader doing? They're experiencing it, right? So when you read about the sci-fi thing, you're not telling a story by reading it. You are understanding a character. You're experiencing the world. When you play the game, that's what you're doing. Think about playing a game like reading a novel. And how do you play some RPG games? You get the book, read through it because you're reading for the experience. Your imagination, right, is running when you read, right? That's what you're doing in a tabletop role-playing game. Guys hate being wrong about that issue. And I'm like, well, on top of you being wrong, there's people out there that take your bullshit argument and try to justify things that don't work for the game. Character death is great tension for the game and experience. It brings danger that you can't just create with something else so easily. It's so important to the feel, like how dangerous is the world. One of the best ways to communicate danger is character death. Like just ending. Well, the game ends with the character, like the character goes out like this, but they don't die. Yeah, but then you don't care if the game ends in the same way. Character death means your character dies and the game can continue. So it makes it really, it's character death is bringing the dangerous feel. And the more you're committed to the character and to the game, the more you want to avoid character death, the more you're scared of it, the more then the dangerous the world is. And you feel it because you want to avoid character death. So you feel it. That's escapism and feeling and experience. It's you can repeat this to people all fucking day, but there's just some old guys, especially old guys more than anything. There's some young people. Some of the young people, this is storytelling. So no character death. No, it's not storytelling. So how about you go fuck yourself? Like what it even, I hate to say it, like Pendragon and Castle Falkenstein are trying to tell a story, but not even properly. I even question if I get it. At least it is them trying to tell a story, unlike the other games, for real. But like, ask any storyteller principles about storytelling. All right, so I said lack of control over the characters. Is that storytelling? Any novel writer will say no, because you're not you're responsible for the characters because you're responsible for the quality of the story and how the story is told. You have control over the story. It's your thoughts that are the sort of thing happening. That's the challenging part. You need control of the characters. You have control of all these things. So a real storyteller, if you talk to them and dig down in principle and say, is Pendragon storytelling? They'll say no. Because there's principles to storytelling. All right, one of the main principles is the storyteller controls the characters. Not on a dice roll, controls the characters and is responsible for the characters. So you can blame. Storyteller is someone you can blame for failure. Like, what if I roll the dice a certain way in a Pendragon game? Then is it my fault? Or is it the dice? Is the storyteller responsible for the characters? Storytellers will tell you they are. So when you ask a real storyteller, is because Pendragon actually tries to tell a story, is Pendragon a storytelling game in the way that you think of yourself being a storyteller? Would you give somebody who's running a Pendragon game the storytelling label? They'd say no. And I even ask storytellers, and I mention this in videos, and people don't get it. Storytelling, being a storyteller, is a respected label in society. Right? So it's like, to storytellers, they think that's a big issue because they built that reputation up. So they're like, no, we don't want some guy who plays a game coming in and trying to jump on our backs and steal our label and take things that we earned that they're not even doing and haven't earned. So they think it's a fucking disgrace. Talk to real storytellers. I swear to fuck. Ask them. They think it's a disgrace that someone who runs a fucking game is calling themselves a storyteller, because that's a respected fucking label in society. And that was built up by real storytellers, and the respect that comes with it isn't something you just get for fucking free. It means you got to be that to fucking get the respect. And if you don't have control of your characters and you're not responsible for what you're doing, you're not a fucking storyteller, so go fuck yourself. That's what a real storyteller tells you. So I'm like, I don't even count Pendragon as real storytelling. I always say it like this. We're running a unique game that uses forms of acting from drama class and parts of storytelling that comes together to make something unique on its own, separate from these things. And we should never steal a label or a title from something else where we have not fucking earned it. So if we're game masters, be happy with the fucking label. That's all you are, jackass. Stop pretending you're something you're not. Sorry if I sound really passionate about that, but that's just something I've been really, I give a shit about, because I don't pretend that I'm a storyteller. I don't sit there and go around and get fucking people, because I know it's a society respects that label, that title. So I do not cheaply use it. Like, I'm a storyteller, haha, great. But you're responsible for your story? Well, no, it's the dice. Well, then go fuck yourself. No, you're not. Oh. Yeah, that's it. Like, storytellers control their characters, control the story. And they're responsible for the quality. And so if you're a good writer, you'll be called out. And if you're not, but you don't get to be like, well, it was a bit of a shitty story, but it's the dice's fault. But it's not even creating a story. Story just emerges from what you're doing, Black Rose. That's what I'm trying to say to you. Do you have control over the setting as a player? No. So you're not a storyteller. Do you have control over the NPCs? No. So you're not a storyteller. And for a storyteller, you need to be responsible for everything. You're responsible for the setting, for all the surrounding characters to the main characters, and the main characters. That's what a real storyteller is. They take responsibility and they control these things. They are judged if they fail or succeed. What's the players doing? They're involved in a game where they want to embody a character, feel the world, and from that, a story just naturally emerges. But it's no different than me. Here's what I'd say, Black Rose. If players are storytellers, I'm a storyteller every time I go for a walk. What am I doing different from the players? I go for a walk, and what happens from my walk? I could tell you a story at the end. Am I a storyteller, or am I telling you the story that emerged from my walk? You get what I'm saying? So players qualify as storytellers. I'm a storyteller every time I go for a walk. That's not how that works. I'm sure Prince Valiant was deliberately designed to be a storytelling version of Pendragon. There wasn't any dice rolls, just tossing coins. That might, see, this might be trying to get to real storytelling, a version of it, but understanding you got to do these layers to get to it. Because if you bring randomness in, even the coin tossing, it starts getting iffy. I have no issue with this. Because the false label of storytelling allows people to pitch in bullshit that's just bullshit. That's where I tell guys, oh, you want to be storytellers? Well, now a bunch of guys over here that want to use your same bullshit say character death shouldn't be in the game. And the problem is, if we accept your argument, their argument is legit. Oh. Well, it's to me, it's even the way you're wording it. I sort of get what you mean, but it's the players control the story through action. Just think of it as initially, it's not a story. It's going to turn into one, but initially, it's a game. So take the players control, say, the direction of the game. Notice how I'll use that language properly. See, what I'll say between me, and I get we agree now, just a semantic thing. But the way I'll use the language is the players control the direction of the game. And what happens while we play the game? A story emerges from it. Initially, our intent is to play the game. So what we're doing is a game. And what I say is, in my sandbox gimmick, the way I do it, and what you're talking about sandboxing is, or in many ways, whatever, either way, you get what I'm saying. The players direct the game. They are taking the game in a certain direction. As a game master, or you, or me, we follow, but it is a game. To say it's storytelling is wrong in that essence. Is to say they're taking control of the story. No, there's no story until after they do the thing. So they got to play the game, lead the game, and then once activity is done, you can tell a story from what they did. The same way I go for the walk, right? I'm not going to lead the story in the walk. I'm going for a walk like they're playing a game. But what happens from them playing a game or me going for the walk? In both cases, a story emerges. But am I leading the story from my walk? No. Right? It's just going to be a story emerged from the activity. It's like you playing pool. That's, yeah. I get it. I get it. It's just semantic. That's why I said semantics. I get that we agree. But that's why I use language properly, because in the nerd world, with so many agendas, when you don't use that language properly, people are two-faced. It's true. Like if you accidentally use that language, they'll be like, yeah, we're storytellers. No, we're not. We're playing a game, and the story is told from the game we're playing. But it's initially a game because we're not in control of all these aspects for real storytelling. It's not even our intent. You're playing a game. You're initially going in to embody a character, get into a setting, but it's so different than reading a book, right? If you're reading a book, you're going into your imagination. You're going to embody things. Maybe the main character. You're going in to feel the setting when you read. The storyteller is someone who told the story that you're reading, but it's you initially are going into it to have an experience. That's what you're going into a game for. One of these games to have an experience, to escape the real world. It's just at the end. But if you got to be so careful with language. It's like I won't say this too many times on YouTube, but language can be poisonous in this way. It's imagine you hear people saying moderation. Like, that's not bad. And if I said, "What? But you're against censorship, right?" You'd be like, "Yeah." What's moderation? It's another way of saying that. So you realize language can brainwash you. That's what you got to be so careful with language because it can brainwash you. Like, you're against censorship, but moderation. But what's moderation? You get it? Language can manipulate. So, Grandma Wormtongue. Philo gets it right away. I know he does, even with the joke. I get he gets it. But it's good to know this. That's why language, especially when you know there's people with agendas and deceitful people out there that will use your misuse of language to manipulate or push bullshit agendas. So that's what I mean about saying the players are leading the story. No, they're leading the game. They're taking the direction of the game is where they go. The story emerges. And it's just so important to get that right because there's so many people that are liars and two-faced people and people with agendas, right? It's different if you're actually intending to tell a story like Pendragon. So there's some storytelling. But overall, are you telling a story or storytelling like in the game? Like, see, that's what I mean. I could say I'm storytelling a scene. So I go in, I explain what the scene is, and the next guy explains what the next scene is. But am I writing a book? Am I telling an entire story? Or am I using the activity of storytelling within a game format? There's still game elements that are going to be applied. So that's what I mean about we in tabletop role-playing games use the elements of storytelling. But overall, are we telling a complete story? No, the story just emerges from the totality of the activity. So you can use the element of storytelling by having someone use the technique of storytelling to explain a scene. It's their turn, and that guy explains the next scene. But if you got to understand that's just it. But this is where language is important. Because if you don't point out that's what's happening, you go back to the deceitful agenda person. See, we're storytelling. No, we're fucking not. We're using a storytelling technique within the game format. So it's like, of course, the player is doing that. Everyone that wanted to become someone studied rhetoric using arguments. Yep. And it's some of the most poisonous shit today. It's how they push stuff that you won't like. Once you study history and language, you get to know this stuff, and you realize you can be so easily brainwashed or just it makes you assume things. And so I don't disagree with what Craig's saying about the players take turn telling a story in the adventure. They're not telling a full story in that way. They're using techniques to tell a bit about stuff. And then it's in a bigger package of a game. But if I were to say, are you telling an entire story? Well, that's really not exactly what they're doing, right? They're using a storytelling technique, but it's still a game element around it, right? That's all that's happening. It's like drama. In some parts, you got a talking character. Well, are you acting? Is that real overall acting? Are you an actor? Can't we, if we can be so loose with the storytelling, can't we all say we're actors? I'm an actor. What do you do? Well, I talk in character. I do acting in the game. Well, no, dude, You're not an actor. You're just using fucking elements from it for the overall game. But wait, I do the acting. I'm an actor. Not really. Not really. So it's like, to me, if you want to do a complete story and really have, and you have to have control of things too. There'd be a limit. Like, you could tell a story within the thing, but there'll be limits. There'll still be limits put on you in the game. You can't just, can you change the setting with your story? Like the whole thing? Because the storyteller has control over everything. No, well then you're using a technique from storytelling as your part into the entire package. Of course it happens. But if you say we're storytelling, again, this is where you fall back to, well, if we really are, the guys who say we shouldn't have character death have a point. Because character death might suck for the story. They're not wrong. Like, see, that's the shitty part. Once you really believe we're storytelling, that's where the guys feel justified in saying no character death. Sucks for storytelling. You have to give that argument weight. Now, it's not true that we're doing exactly what they're saying, but the second you play to it like we are, you can't deny that that's a credible fucking argument. You have to say to yourself, well, if we really are telling a story, would it suck to have the character die at this moment? Yeah. I mean, for game-wise, it'd be fair. But if we're storytelling, the guys who say character death is bad because of storytelling reasons, they have a legit case. That's the shitty part. I'm going to light your thing down here. No, I'm not saying it can't be philo, but it's like, if you say, well, we can still call ourselves storytellers, but we can try to justify it in. It's just be saying, you have a point, they have a point, but then it depends on what the situation is. So there'll be many situations where the drama and tragedy is no good. So then their argument wins that day. But today, the drama and tragedy could be great, so it's good this day. Yeah, but that might still be for a different, like, you're not looking for the same tension and tune. So just because there's no character death doesn't mean that's all bad, but it really does come in tension with the game. It's like in Dungeons and Dragons, because you want danger, so there's intention in the experience, the embodiment, and the wanting the setting to feel a certain way. Then character death is necessary for the game to get that experience, for that escapism. If tune isn't after that, then yeah, of course you can justify, even outside of storytelling, even in the game, no character death without calling it you're a storyteller. But it's when you use storytelling to go into games where character death would be appropriate, but if you're a storyteller, you can argue it out. Fought to the end with a good story. Yeah. That could be but that's still a story emerges because we never planned that out at all. That was just random. The guys were embodying the characters. But if you ask the players, were you telling a story or were you playing the game? Were you into the setting, into the characters, embodying the characters, escaping from the real world? Maybe that escapism, playing the game. Now, did a great story emerge from their actions during a game? Yeah. Did they have, if you asked any of those players, were you intending to tell a story? No. Didn't even try. Never even thought of it. Because stories emerge from the game. It's like the walk against Philo. We're back to going for a walk. If I go for a walk, am I a storyteller? No. The story emerges from my walk. So I can tell you a story from the walk. The walk could be fucking incredible. I can go and just fucking meet these fucking people. By the time I get back to you, you're like, holy fuck. I tell you a pigeon died. So there was death. I could tell you all kinds of things. And you're like, holy shit. That's what happened on your walk? Yeah. Was I going on the walk to tell a story? No. Does a potentially interesting story emerge from the activity of walking? Yeah, but I'm only out there to walk, just like those players were only out there to play a game, right? Great story though. But a lot of games the stories aren't that interesting when they emerge. So it's only so many games where you're doing that sort of randomly, and randomly you can get a good story. Randomly you can get a pretty good story. Random. So, but it's not, you're not storytelling, you're playing a game. But it's like going for the walk. I'm not really doing anything different than what those players are doing as far as initially I'm not telling a story or trying to. But good stories can emerge. They can emerge from anything. Some guys will turn somewhat into storytellers, I guess, from turning their real life experience. And a good storyteller will tell you, because stories emerge better than just what's on the top of your head sometimes, a lot of storytellers out there will tell you things like, you should go to the place where you want to tell a story about. Because it's not that the whole story emerges from there, but they respect that even without you storytelling, like say you want to tell a story about a mall. Well, they'll tell you to go hang out at the mall. And you don't go hang out at the mall to tell a story, but they understand that elements of storytelling can happen. Like interesting stories can emerge from what you're doing. And then you could take those elements into your own overall storytelling, of course. But they understand it's an emergent factor that's going in. You get the storytellers who understand all this and tell you. And I have family members that write novels. They write all the time, so they're real storytellers. And these are the people I talk to. And when I talk to them, they have a deep history understanding of real storytelling compared to what we're doing, right? And they're like, yeah, it's story emerges, but a story can emerge from the most basic things. But that's a difference. That's a story emerging for what you're doing. You're not telling it initially. Like they would tell you, they are telling a story because it has to come out of here. Like they have to make it up to a degree. Like you're using these elements, but overall you're making things up and you're responsible for it. Right? So if the story is bad, that's on you. The story is good, that's on you. But you initially are telling a story from scratch. That's actually you creating a story. Creating a story is what you're really going to do out of your mind on purpose with control and responsibility. The second you can't control something random is in there, well then now no matter what you do, a story is still going to emerge rather than you just telling a story. Right? So I get how people can wrap it up, but it's you just got to understand there's so many bullshit people out there. And you got to watch how you use language. And it's a label of respect. It's a deep respect. So why falsely even want to take a label? It's just so two-faced. It's so two-faced. I'm a gamer, period. I will not sit here and bullshit anybody and take a title of respect that I haven't fucking earned. It's a title built up by real storytellers. So society respects it. If you can say you're a storyteller, you'll be taken serious. But that's because other real storytellers put that into that, not you, or me, who's not really a storyteller. So the second you take the title, it's like going around saying you're a fucking Marine when you're not. It's that type of shit, pretending to be someone of military. Oh, I was a Navy SEAL. No, you weren't. It's like that. It's a false claim of something. So you're not an actual storyteller. Just because you use elements doesn't mean that's what you are. It's good that a story can randomly emerge, but again, just because it emerges from the way you play the game, it can emerge from a walk. And if the walk can create the same situation or create an emergent story, well then if you're a storyteller, when I go for the walk is storytelling. I'm a storyteller now that I go for a walk. So, and I don't mean to be aggressive with people. I'm being straight up because I know the truth of this. And I went into great detail in these debates, right? I know the debate really well and I know the truth of it. We're not storytellers. Let's stop bullshitting people. Even Pendragon, I don't consider overall storytelling. because there's so much randomness that because you can't control it, what you do ends up becoming something that emerges rather than you telling something in that way. Now, are we using storyteller elements in what we're doing? Some games really do use the elements, but it's elements with limitations. And it's in a package of a game. But it's no different than you speaking in character. You're not an actor, even if you're using elements from acting. Right? Because if you're a storyteller, then you're an actor too. So we get to take all labels. Hey, I'm an actor. Oh, wow, dude, you are? Because they know acting can take a long time to learn to get that title. Another fucking thing people are going to take you a bit more serious on. But are you an actor because you said some fucking improvised lines in a fucking tabletop role-playing game? No, you're not. Stop bullshitting. Language is so important because you trick yourself. You start believing this shit. You start believing you're a storyteller. I'm like, you're not. And when I break it down, what I say makes sense to people. And I know it does. So it's like, just get the agenda out of your head if you have it. Right? And don't get stuck. But yeah, some great stories can always emerge from anything. No doubt. I don't ever deny that. In some game, not everything requires character death. That's a great thing where Craig pointed out. Not every game would require character death. But then that game has a different intention. That's fine too. But a lot of games, the intention is danger. So if you're in a dangerous world, one of the best fucking ways of making sure that feels, because you're looking for an experience to embody a character, to embody the feel of the world. If a world is dangerous, that means death is right around the corner. It means death is easy to run into. It's a great way of creating that. If your game is funny and it's meant to get a good laugh, is character death necessary for that experience? No. But then and failure is not even meant to be that intense. Maybe it's meant to be more casual to begin with. But there'll still be forms of failure. And guess what? It might not be as intense as character death, but failing sucks. And if you're going to emphasize that as the big boom, it's still going to suck. You might not be character death failure, but it will be failure. Failure sucks. Character death is the reason it works so well in tabletop role-playing games is it's a failure. Like Toon can be treated more like a game in the aspect of failure. Failure sucks. So it could be more like it sucks and you don't want it to happen because you don't like the feeling. Where you can take tabletop role-playing games in a way that you're meant to, in a more serious game, the idea is you're embodying the character and it's going to feel a bit more real. If it feels a bit more real, well, then what happens when you face character death? It's a bit more feeling like it's real, right? And that reality feel is what makes it dangerous because now you want to avoid it, right? But again, you don't need that much of an impact in a game that is just completely aiming at something else. But still, ultimate failure will exist, and that will suck. It's just have to, like, so many guys I've had to talk to about this stuff where they keep putting up layers and layers and layers in front of me. Like, what about this storytelling, Steve? I'm like, dude, I'm going to be right at the end of this. You can go through as many fucking layers as you want. By the end, you'll realize I'm completely right. And then you realize there's people out here that use it for bullshit reasons. In a game where the world is meant to be dangerous and the best way to communicate is that through character death, the last thing you want are people to be able to make a credible, well, not a credible argument, but a sort of false credible argument where they get to pretend they are something. And under that pretending, because people believe what they're bullshitting about, as long as they get you to believe a lie about who they are, storytellers, now they can justify character death should be removed because it wouldn't be as cool. But character death is the way you make the place feel dangerous. If you take it out, there goes your fucking danger. So then it's about being cool. It's about looking good and feeding your ego. It's like, that's not what the game is about. And if you need ego boost, there are games that let you avoid character death at certain times that are meant to give you an ego boost. So James Bond is a great example. The game I just covered the other night. You're okay to get a few ego boosts from that game. It's okay. They want you to be the slick Bond type of characters. So what do they give you? A thing called hero points. So every so often you can skip character death. But there's intent for you to have that experience. But character deaths can still be applied in the game if you run out of points. So it's still there to create the danger, and it does because it is a threat. But the hero points, you might have a few, so you can have a few cool moments and feel like Bond. That's an ego boost. It's okay. It's acceptable because the danger is meant to be part of the game, but as much as the being cool and surviving against danger is meant to be another side of the game. You can't always have hero points, so there's only so many times you can look fucking slick and get away with the shit. But that is a bit of an ego boost. Oh, what a cool hero point. Okay. But that's, again, that's a bit of simulation. Even though they'll deny it's complete simulation game, there's some simulation there. But it is meant to have an experience, too. You're supposed to be embodying a Bond character who can get past death. So for you to have that real experience, you need the hero point. But overall, death is still in the game. But why does it still have to exist even when you have that? It's because it's there to be able to create the danger feeling. Right? Again, in a game like Toon, what Craig is talking about, that's just unnecessary. Just ultimate failure can be good enough for that game. That's fine. It's just the second you want danger, this is the thing that takes care of it. If you're not looking for that type of danger, you're fine. Oh, I never seen Black Rose say goodnight, but not a philo skirt. Oh, you're taking off there, Craig. Good night, Craig. Love you, dude. Talk to you soon. I'm just about done. Probably done. I mean, I was just sitting here shooting the shit. Got some people watching, so I figured why I had an audience watching, I'd keep talking for a second. But yeah, I figured I should stop. Okay, guys. There's enough of that. I think I drove. I think I made my point, though. All right. Love y'all. I hope people take a good education away from these streams. Like, that was a good debate to have, or a good argument, or bringing things up. And I hope I'm not trying to shut you. Like, you notice you're left open to say all you want. It's not like I'm hiding from fucking debate. I don't do that, even though people accuse me of it. Oh. Well, then he thought Black Rose was saying goodnight. Were you saying goodnight, Black Rose, and I fucking missed it? Okay, I think that was a misfire. I can go for another good 15 minutes here, at least. But it was a misfire. I thought if Craig's taken off and Black Rose might be like, okay, if the audiences are going to start disappearing, chatters, I'll end. But you guys are still here going, good, we're good. Good. No, it's not to insult anyone. I think the points, like all the things we sort of, I think we agree on more than we disagree. Oh, Black Rose, yeah. I think we all agree more than we disagree on things. It can come down to semantics and language. Oh, okay. You're out now. I'll still stick around until I'm done this smoke. But yeah, I hear you, Black Rose. Have a good night. That can be really late. That was late. Jeez, I never seen that at all. Good night, fella. Have a good one. Catch up tomorrow on some of this stuff if you want, if you care, even for this game. I don't know. It's up to you. But check out the Joe Farmer thing. That one's not too long, Black Rose. When you get some time, check that one out. I think you'll get a good fucking laugh because I'm pretty sarcastic in it, and I think I hit the funny point a few times. A few times. But yeah, I think the story, I just think it's an important discussion. That's why I'm not And I'm not trying to like get people to, oh, you have to agree with me. I'm just showing you how passionate I am about the thing. But I think it's a great discussion to have. And I think it's great that if you guys bring up certain points that could be used as disagreements, I think it's good for that. I have to deal with those because that's people want to see that they would think it's like if we're going to have that discussion, you're not bringing up these points and I don't have to counter them. What do you get out of that, right? Then you think I'm full of shit and you think you have points. It just becomes a waste of time. So it's good that you guys from Philo to Craig brought certain elements up because either it's going to break, I'm going to actually end up being wrong, which is fair, or I'm going to make my point further, but then that debate's a healthy debate because we progress. It's like if we can accept truth, we can all move forward on reality instead of getting caught up on something that might not be true. Oh, yeah. Well, no, I hear what you're saying. I probably won't be sleeping right away either. I'll be doing some notes after this for sure. I'll be doing some notes. I got off script coming up. Let me see. Let me see this shit. Remember, next week is Fudge. Or not next week, but the second week of June. What am I saying next week? I'm just bullshitting, saying the wrong things. I don't want to get you hyped right away, Craig, but it's coming. It's coming. Let's talk about upcoming streams. We got Travel and Pacing. It's Tuesday, off script. And then, well, Black Rose is gone, but you're here, Craig, so I can remind you, and I hope you both are around. Members only, Wednesday the 20th, Savage Worlds. We can have a much more, I won't just do the same routine. Those are going to be way more intimate discussions. And so I'm going to set them up to be a little bit different. But it will inform you, I promise you that. You'll understand Savage Worlds by the end, but that is members only. Wednesday, Savage Worlds. So it's going to be Tuesday is Travel and Pacing, then Savage Worlds. And then I do another off script right away, which is going to be Anti-Dungeons and Dragons. And that's going to be talking about all the different views of wargamers, how they were opposed to D&D, how many of the games were made to be anti-D&D. And then I did the James Bond, and this is, I think I was talking to Monkey about this, because I did the James Bond, but I wanted to get to another game right away that's similar, but different, which is TSR's Top Secret, which there's been some updates on that, which Monkey, I hope, because Monkey knows about it, he can mention some of that in the stream and chat when we have that night. But here's a wild thing. That will be the weekend. So it'll be Top Secret. And I think you guys will like this one because this will be different. Ghostbusters RPG. So a week from today is Ghostbusters RPG. And then we go into and it won't just be focused on D&D. When I say modules, I'll be doing like pre-made adventures. I'll be talking about not just D&D, but definitely modules and magic. And that will be the Tuesday. And then the Thursday, because there'll be no Wednesday night, because I only do that for the members only that week. And it's the lineup that I know for sure Mr. Craig is waiting for. Paranoia will be Thursday. And then you get your Tune on Saturday. And then your GURPS on Sunday. And then it will be back to off script. I haven't got a subject for the next off script, but then I'll be doing something interesting. It'll be a new stream. So Thursdays is going to be talking about old school D&D. I promise, even for a guy like Craig, I'm going to make it interesting. So the first thing I'm going to cover, which I think you'll be interested in this, Craig, old school D&D, a setting. I'm going to be covering Dark Sun. And then I'm going to be covering on the weekend Dangerous Journeys. I don't want to say too much. I want that to be a surprise. And then Star Wars RPG. And I know Mr. Spaceman, my friend Craig, will definitely be into that. Well, at least on the front that it is space. It's going to be Star Wars. I had a feeling I wouldn't get not too many people would be hyped on this stream. That's part of the gimmick. Oh, there's Drift Speed. Sup, did you do Vampire Masquerade yet? Yes, but I am going to do an extension on that soon. So there's so much to that I sort of did an overall, but I am going to start focusing on specifics. that will start sometime, ironically, in June. I'm not even making that up. So I did it. You can go check out a stream for overall, right? No, that's D&D. Yeah, I did. If you check back in the streams, you'll find Vampire Masquerade. But I sort of cover World of Darkness in general. Like I cover a bunch of things in that. It's actually, I think that stream is actually really good. And the people that like World of Darkness actually liked it. So I think you'll like it. I really do. Yeah, Philo. That's actually a good one. I think you'll actually like that, Drift Speed. You should definitely check it out. But I will be talking some more specifics. There's so much extra. And Cyberpunk Philo, I'll be doing everything on that because I've been telling Philo I'm going to do some of the extension, which is this month on some of the extended material. But yes, Star Wars is the last one I've scheduled. The week like after Star Wars, it's going to be Saturday is going to be Fudge. I haven't scheduled it yet, but Fudge will be Saturday, Craig. So Saturday after the first Sunday of June will be Fudge. And I promise you, I get all the information. I think you'll be super impressed with that. I'm quite happy with it, and it's going to be aimed to please you. So I think you'll be very pleased with that one. Oh, if you're looking forward to Fudge, it's one of Craig's top games. There's a fucking a soft part of his heart, part in his heart for that one, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Look at me getting all over the fucking place. But Fudge is going to be after Star Wars. Of course, our off script and the next D&D. I haven't decided what the next D&D is going to be, but I have just a whole shitload of topics for all these things, right? So I'll figure up the off script. I'll figure out the D&D, but Saturday will be Fudge. So that will be good. Yeah. Tonight was pretty good, but some of these games I don't expect to hit at the park all the time, but they're not meant to be. They're educational. In fact, some I hope hit really good. Oh, Drift, that will help you decide. It was so good, it got me to start running. Look, put it this way. I wrote it out. You can ask Philo. I was so hyped in my own fucking stream that I started a fucking game afterwards. I don't know how much more I could say I hyped the game than watching that one. So Drift Speed, that might actually be, really genuinely worth your time. I go over everything. Like on a general scale, I go over everything. If you're thinking of World of Darkness, just generally, check out that stream. It will tell you if you're going to play it or not. Because I get so fucking hyped. I went and fucking started World of Darkness off my own. I hyped myself. And Philo thought it was great. All the guys thought it was great. I'm not trying to brag. It was a good hype night. It's a good game. So it was easy to fucking hype up. Right? So I got fucking hyped. And then I went and started World of Darkness. So I don't know if it drives the guy fucking covering it to go play it. Maybe it will get you to want to go play it. And you got guys right away saying it's good. Yeah. One of our Bonthors is missing game is both Star Wars and Fudge. So I'm well catered for. Oh yeah. Star Wars and then coming Fudge right away. I'm so glad you're into the Star Wars thing. I wasn't 100%. I knew space was your gimmick, but I was like, good. Is Star Wars good? And then Fudge. But we got so many other games that I won't just list them all off like a fucking maniac here. But maybe I'll just mention a few. Just a few I haven't done. Like, we got Metamorphosis Alpha coming up. Let me get the thing back up so I can sort of see myself too at the same time. It helps. But Torg, Prince Valiant that we talked about. Legends of the Five Rings. Like if you don't like D&D, but you're still open to some. Wait, I got Dragon's Quest 2, Marvel Superheroes. I mean, that's another superhero game, but it's time and time again, there's something. Unknown Armies. I don't know if you guys heard some of these ones. Conspiracy X. Deadlands. If you like cowboy western, Deadlands is coming up soon. Note it. I'm going to mention the variety because there's a variety of there's more than one Star Wars, so I'll definitely do some mentioning of make sure I cover some things. But yeah, one I think a lot of you will look forward because Deadlands is definitely a cowboy western. Ars Magica. There is still Space 1889, and like early 2000 games, because I get this is just a list of work like early 2000 games is crazy. Hero Wars, Dune, Chronicles of Imperium, because these are some of the games I've played recently. I'm only going to mention the ones I played recently. Hackmaster. I know Phila's listening to this stuff here. Burning Wheel, I talked about that because I'm doing that recently. Mutants and Masterminds. Now, these are short runs I've had with the games. Savage Worlds, but I'm doing that early for that's unique because that's for members only. So that's where I can sort of break the rules of what I cover. Everyone's going to be happy about this. So I'll be playing this, it's this Friday. I'll be having a small go at it, and then I'll be going the next week too. So I'll be covering, it's prepping me for covering Babylon 5 role-playing game. Oh, and again, the World of Darkness I'm doing now, but I will be doing like updates of World of Darkness. Like there's a Vampire Requiem. That's for the 2000 stuff. So that's when I start doing the stuff beyond 1999. But some of that, like a Spycraft, I did a little bit of that. I'm going to mention stuff I've actually done here. Lady Blackbird. I don't even know if some of you guys heard about that one yet. Wild Talents. I've done that one. Played. I don't want to. And Dogs in the Vineyard. But I'm going to stop mentioning games now. You did. The Call of Cthulhu is I also got to watch. Oh, yeah. I do. It's great advice. All of them are factual based. And the advice, look, if you've never played a game before, so I think some of the advice can sometimes sound a little boring. I don't have a personal opinion, but I get compliments anyway. But if you're going to play any of these games, I promise you the advice stuff I give out is good. And sometimes it's not really appreciated until you sit down and try to play or run the game. That's when you go back to my advice and you go, oh, that's why that's so fucking good. Because you've now tried to do it and you start listening to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I should do that, shouldn't I? That's when if you don't know games, sometimes the advice can miss. It can sound unappealing, especially older games drift. You've always got to remember that the mechanics can be so light and so easy on some games that what am I going to tell you? It's like tonight I covered this game, but it's like the dice mechanic. Roll D20 under, lower. I mean, there's only so much of that I got to say, right? The rest can be in, because old games are about your embody and experience and feel of a setting. So it might sound like I'm telling you something generic sometimes when I'm giving you advice under those conditions, but it's like, go run the game. And then you come back and listen, you go, holy shit, that's really, I promise you that's what you'll say. Because I've given the advice to other people that actually ran these games, and they always like the fucking advice because it actually matches up with what you're actually doing. Then you go, oh, you have to sometimes try something to see the value in what I'm saying. If you don't know, it could just sound like, well, he's just saying to do this and go over here and do this. And that's not too fucking great. You got to run the game. Oh, that's actually fucking great advice. Yeah. It's good. Good stuff. But I mean, usually the pitch around is pretty good. Fluff is good. Stuff like that. I try my best. Sometimes hit and miss. All right, guys. Craig, Philo, Monkey, I know you're watching somewhere. Drift, thank you for stopping by. And Drift, Wednesday, if you're going to be here with Craig and Black Rose for members only, there's only 3 of you. But I am doing. It's going to be intimate. It's going to be Savage Worlds, dude. So if you get any time, you don't have to be around, but it is, that part of being a member, right? So you are a member, and you can stop by for members only Wednesday, which is going to be Savage Worlds. Yes, Craig. Love you guys. Love you, Craig. Have a good one, dude. Monkey, Philo, anyone who watches this later, I love all you. All right.